Chapter 647. In the imperial palace, the wine glass in the emperor's hand fell to the ground with a "pa" sound. His whole body suddenly trembled like a sieve. After a long while, he calmed down. A sinister look flashed between his eyebrows as he muttered, "Jun mo xia, you've finally found the blood sword hall. Are you finally coming? I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you. I'm the emperor. I'm the emperor, the number one person in Tianxiang." He roared, grabbed the wine pot, and gulped down another mouthful. Suddenly, he stopped and muttered, "The empress should know about the blood sword hall. Does that mean she's not dead? Did she tell Jun Moxie?" At this point, his eyes suddenly lit up. He kicked over the table in a frenzy and roared, "Why aren't you dead? Murong Xiu Xiu, why aren't you dead? Why aren't you dead?" He roared like this for a while, then suddenly shrank his entire body back into the wide dragon throne. His fingers trembled as he held his head. Suddenly, he said in a low voice as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders, "Thank goodness you didn't die, that's great. Xiu Xiu. Do you know, I can't bear to let you die. I really can't bear to let you die. You're not dead, that's great." This kind of extremely complicated and abnormal feeling was not something that others could understand. Perhaps even the emperor of Tianxiang, who was in pain, could not understand his own state of mind. What exactly was he longing for? The hustle and bustle of the New Year's Eve finally passed. The emperor waited anxiously, but no one came to settle the score with him. The sky was already bright, but still no one came. "Why didn't the Jun family come to find me? Since you found the blood sword hall, why didn't you come to find me? Why?" This question puzzled His Majesty, and it worried him deeply. He was already prepared to face death and was ready to meet his final destination, but the other party did not come. This strange feeling was really hard to describe. "Your Majesty." A guard came to report, but it startled the emperor, who was lost in thought. He trembled and jumped up from his chair. He said angrily, "What's the matter? What happened?" As the words left his mouth, he realized that his back was drenched in cold sweat. It turned out that he could still be afraid. The Jun family has erected a platform at the entrance of the imperial palace. There's a banner on it that says, "Punish the rebels, warn the evil and eradicate the traitors." But I don't know what they're doing. The guard was startled, and hastily reported. "What?" The emperor was startled. His face suddenly became gloomy as he roared in a low voice, "The Jun family. This is too much. That high platform is really high. From the high platform in the palace, you can see it clearly." The guard carefully knelt down and reminded him in a low voice. "I'll go take a look." The bustling construction scene completely blocked the main entrance of the palace. Jun mo xia was dressed in a white robe with a light blue belt around his waist. He was sitting cross-legged on a huge armchair. His black hair was fluttering freely in the cold wind. He had an evil smile on his face. He was talking and laughing with Dugu Shao Yi beside him as if there was no one else present. Not far away, there were 3 corpses, fresh blood still dripping down. These were the guards at the entrance of the palace. They came to stop the construction when the platform was first erected, but were immediately ordered to be killed by Jun Moxie. Then, the Jun family's guards stood on the left and right. The members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer team surrounded the palace guards with a terrifying murderous aura. The emperor stepped onto a high platform and looked up. The opposite platform was right in front of him. It was so eye-catching. He understood that the reason why Jun Moxie wanted to erect a high platform in front of the palace was to humiliate him. To attack him with all his might. But now, he could do nothing in the face of such humiliation. He had to bear it even if he didn't want to. If he were to really fly into a rage and launch an attack, the only result would be to hasten the destruction of the Tianxiang Empire. The Jun family was no longer the Jun family of the past. Any random person would be able to kill like a madman in the dark of the night. They would be able to come and go as they pleased, and as for killing, they would be able to take the head of the emperor without a sound. Looking at the high platform that was almost within reach, the emperor's body turned cold. His chest was filled with anger, but there was nothing he could do. For the first time, he felt some regret. If Jun Moxie wanted to take revenge openly, perhaps he wouldn't be so afraid. Even if it was torture, it would only result in death. As an ambitious person, he was not afraid of death. But this kind of blunt knife cutting flesh, this kind of naked humiliation in front of the whole world, was unbearable to him. Right now, the emperor felt like he was the biggest laughing stock nailed to the pillar of shame. He was being ridiculed by the whole world. He looked at the white figure sitting leisurely on a wooden armchair. His eyes were spitting flames of anger. If this angry look could really burn someone to death, then Jun Dashao would have died at least 100 times. At this moment, Jun Moxie seemed to turn his head indifferently. His eyes met the gaze of the emperor of Tianxiang, Yang Huaiyu. The emperor felt a stinging pain in his eyes. Jun Moxie's gaze was like two sharp swords, accurately stabbing into his heart. In that instant, it was difficult for him to breathe. Even standing was difficult. The corners of Jun Moxia's mouth curled into a playful smile as he suddenly said, "Shao Yi, look over there. It's our emperor." "Haha, that yellow robe of his really makes him look like a black bear." As he said that, he pointed with his finger. It was the middle finger. Dugu Shao Yi also looked over and said, "Not at all, not at all. Where is the black bear?" "Oh, isn't that it? A big black bear." Jun Moxia pointed with his finger again. Dugu Shao Yi wasn't the only one who was looking at him. Everyone around them also turned their gazes to look at him. Ha ha ha. Jun Moxie laughed loudly. He suddenly stretched out his left hand and pulled Dugu Xiaoyi's slender waist into his embrace. He said in a low voice, "Do you see that?" Dugu Xiaoyi felt weak all over as she was suddenly embraced by him. She leaned against him weakly and said shyly, You're so bold. There are so many people here." Although she said that, the little girl did not struggle. She did not even have the slightest intention of resisting. She could not wait to let the whole world see her happiness. "This is the first time this enemy has hugged me." Dugu Xiaoyi blushed and thought to herself. Ha ha ha. Awesome. Holding the power of life and death in my hands, holding a beauty's waist with a smile. Ruling the world. Sweeping across the universe, shocking the world with a flip of my hand. Gods and ghosts cry with a glance. What more can I ask for in life? Ha ha ha. Jun Moxia laughed maniacally, his voice reverberating in all directions. That laughter was like a sharp steel needle, piercing into His Majesty's ears, piercing into his heart. What nobility, what glory, splendor, and wealth. How can they be in my eyes, Jun Moxie's eyes? Jun Moxie laughed. His left sleeve rolled up like a flowing cloud. A glass of wine beside him jumped up. He caught it in his hand and suddenly brought it forward. He laughed from afar and said, "Your Majesty, it's rare that you have the leisure to climb up high to look at me. Let me give you a toast from afar." Ha ha ha. Young Master Jun's voice was wild and unrestrained, carrying with it an unyielding arrogance that didn't conform to the heavens and earth, spreading far and wide. Everyone was startled. They looked in the direction of his voice and saw a bright yellow figure disappearing behind the curtains. Jun Moxie's wild laughter didn't stop. He drained the wine in his cup in one gulp. With a flick of his wrist, the wine cup flew out like a shooting star. With a "pa" sound, it smashed into pieces at the window where His Majesty had just appeared. It was a great humiliation. In the imperial palace, His Majesty's face was ashen. He flicked his sleeves and went downstairs. His whole body was trembling with anger. His eyes were bloodshot. Madness, despair, and humiliation alternated in his eyes. He panted heavily. His breathing became more and more hurried. Suddenly, he choked and coughed violently. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. Jun Moxie had caused such a ruckus. If the imperial family couldn't get rid of Jun Moxie in the shortest time possible, then his dignity as the Emperor of Tianxiang would be gone. But, how could he get rid of Jun Moxie? Just think about it, who in the world is capable of accomplishing that? Why did Mr. Wen withdraw? Why did the Great Golden City make such a decision? The Emperor couldn't think of any other reason if he didn't have misgivings about Jun Moxie and the Jun family. Even the three Holy Lands couldn't do anything about Jun Moxie. So, what could a mere emperor of this world do? But, he couldn't vent his anger. His chest was about to explode. The bystanders didn't know the truth. So, they couldn't help but be stunned when they saw this scene. This Master Jun Sun Shao is so lawless. Isn't this no different from rebellion? Not only did he build a high platform in front of the imperial palace, but he also humiliated his majesty. Isn't this too unimaginable? There was a lot of noise and footsteps. All the aristocratic families in the capital had arrived. But, seeing this scene, even an idiot could understand that the Jun family was clearly going against the royal family. After showing their heads from afar, they disappeared without a trace. This muddy water is too deep. Let's stay away from it. It was the first day of the Lunar New Year. The weather was great. The sun gradually rose, and under this clear sky, this cruel show of a death by 1,000 cuts finally began. As the naked and tied people were taken to the high platform and tied to the wooden stakes, the voices of the bystanders became louder and louder. One by one, they were taken to the high platform. A total of 118 people were taken to the high platform. Wen Songyu was the last one. Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui, together with the Jun family, finally made their appearance. Everyone's face was filled with excitement and joy. The great hatred that had been buried for 10 years was finally going to be avenged today. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Jun Moxie floated up to the high platform and waved his hand. Suddenly, a big flag appeared on the high platform. It was blood red and over 100 feet high. There were 7 big words written on it, General in white, Jun Wuhui. The 7 big golden words shone brightly under the sun, as if they were emitting thousands of rays of light. It was like the glory of the name itself, illuminating the world. The crowd below seemed to realize something and couldn't help but be in an uproar. The flag of the general in white had not been seen for 10 years. Why did it suddenly appear here at this time? Jun Moxie's expression was solemn as he bowed towards the flag. The Jun family members in the audience also bowed in salute. Jun Zhantian's eyes were filled with tears as he gazed at his son's flag for a long time. His lips trembled as his white hair danced in the wind. He stared at it in a daze, as if he could never get enough of it. This was his eldest son, and also his greatest pride. He was the pride of Tianxiang and all the soldiers in the world. Today, he could finally pay his respects to his son with a justifiable reason. With the blood of his enemies as a sacrifice. The wind whimpered in the sky. The flag fluttered in the wind, just like the general in white's army, sweeping through the world. General in white. General in white. Suddenly, a tsunami-like voice rang out. All the soldiers present shouted at the same time, screaming at the top of their lungs. Facing the flag of Tianxiang's protector, someone suddenly cried out and slowly knelt down. Everyone responded one after another, and in an instant, a dense mass of people knelt down. Everyone had tears in their eyes as they sincerely thanked this general in white for the glory and stability he had brought. This flag is the flag of my father, General in white, Jun Wuhui. Jun Moxie stood up with a stern look in his eyes. Back then, my late father fought for Tianxiang and made great contributions. Unfortunately, he passed away in his middle age, becoming the greatest regret of the world. But only now do I know that my father didn't die in battle, but was murdered. Murdered? Ah. How would the ordinary people know about this secret? They only knew that the general in white, who had never been defeated in 100 battles, had died in defeat. But who would have thought that it was a conspiracy? Who in the world framed Jun Mo? Suddenly, a towering man stood up from the crowd. His face was full of grief and indignation, and his veins were bulging as he shouted angrily. This man's face was weathered, and he was tall and strong. He stood up straight and his face was full of fighting spirit. One look and anyone could tell that he used to be a soldier. Who murdered General Jun? Everyone roared at the same time. It's this group of people. Jun Moxie turned around and pointed at the 118 people behind him. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's this group of bastards who are worse than pigs and dogs. They are heartless and plotted against me. My father was a hero, but he was plotted against by these villains. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Kill them. Kill them. Cut them into pieces. We can't let them off so easily. This group of bastards. They are worse than pigs and dogs. Cut them into pieces. Cut them into pieces. My father was bathed in blood for the sake of Tianxiang, for the sake of the people. But he was plotted against by these despicable villains. If I don't take revenge for this, I'll be ashamed to be a son." Jun Moxie roared. "Today, with everyone here as witnesses, we will use the blood of our enemies to offer sacrifices to my father and the heroic spirits of the soldiers. Offering sacrifices to the heroic spirits. Offering sacrifices to the heroic spirits." Countless people burst into tears. Especially the soldiers who had followed Jun Wuhui to war. They gritted their teeth so hard that they could hear their teeth chattering. It was only now that they found out that their beloved General Jun had been murdered. Begin the execution. Jun Moxie's eyes turned cold, and he waved his right hand. A black net was thrown out, and everyone on the stage was covered with it. Then, it tightened and slowly twisted. Little by little, the prisoners' muscles bulged out of the small holes in the net. Even those who had no common sense or knowledge knew what kind of punishment was being carried out on the stage: death by 1,000 cuts. It was the cruelest and most inhumane way to execute a prisoner. Everyone's breathing became rapid. The executioners stretched out their hands and pulled out the cloth that was stuffed in the mouths of the prisoners. These people's dantians had all been crippled by Jun Mo. Their xian qi that they had painstakingly cultivated for many years was long gone. But unexpectedly, not a single one of the 100 or so people begged for mercy. Although some of them were so scared that their faces were pale and their bodies were trembling, but no one begged for mercy. These people were assassins, and were used to seeing life and death. Seeing this scene today, they knew that begging for mercy was useless. They would be stabbed if they stretched out their heads, and they would be stabbed if they shrank their heads. So, they might as well endure it. Kill. The people below the stage were shouting wildly. Jun Mo raised his right hand, and fiercely made a chopping gesture. 118 steel knives were raised at the same time. "Wait. Jun Moxie, I have something to say." Wen Sangyu suddenly raised his head. The strong humiliation of being naked made this supreme master's face distorted. "Jun Moxie, I have always followed the rules in my life. I have never done anything harmful to others. This is the only mistake I have made in my life. And I was entrusted by someone. Can't you just give me a quick death? Even if you've been a saint your entire life, you've committed a crime on the last matter. So you're still a sinner." Jun Mo looked at him coldly. "This has nothing to do with good or evil. No matter what, I am a supreme master of the supreme golden city. I don't want you to be merciful. Can't I ask for a decent death? Jun Moxie, why do you have to be so cruel? Don't leave a way out for us in the future." Wen Sangyu was so angry that he asked sadly. "You finally took out your life-saving talisman? You are going to use the Supreme Golden City to scare me. You should know that the Supreme Golden City can't scare me." Jun Moxie smiled coldly. He flicked his finger, and a black light flew out and smashed into Wen Songyu's mouth. After a series of clanking sounds, when Sungyu spat out blood and more than a dozen teeth with the blood, it turned out that this old man wanted to take the opportunity to kill himself by biting his tongue, but Jun Moxie found out in time and stopped him. Jun Moxie's white robe fluttered. He walked a few steps forward and came to the front of the 110 people. He said lightly, "If you still want to kill yourself by biting your tongue, go ahead. But I want to tell you, if you obediently let me cut you into pieces, everything will be over from now on. If you try to kill yourself by biting your tongue, no matter whether you succeed or not, I will kill all your parents, wives, children, and relatives in your family. Not a single blade of grass will be left, and not even chickens and dogs can escape. Your names and information are in my hands. Don't doubt me, because I can definitely do it. By the way, if anyone doubts me, you can try it with your relatives in your family. I don't mind. Everything will be settled today. All the guests have been gathered by me today. It's all over. I have also greeted all the relatives yesterday and today. Starting from tonight, everything is finally over. Very tired. But, finally relaxed. I am very relaxed. So, I will start tomorrow. Of course, it is not continuous, but starting from tomorrow, I will start working hard this month. 5 days have passed this month. I hope it is not too late. Chapter 648. Jun Moxie smiled faintly, revealing his snow-white teeth. In the eyes of these people, it was so cruel. Like a beast baring its fangs before it hunts its prey. Upon hearing this, several people showed a look of despair on their faces at the same time. They were thinking about this in their hearts. They were prepared to bite their tongues and commit suicide after a period of time. They didn't expect this young man to be so ruthless. With just one sentence, he forced them to not even commit suicide. They could only endure the pain. Since there was no chance of getting lucky today, should they still implicate their families? Jun Moxie had grasped the psychology of these people. They couldn't live, and they couldn't die. In the underworld, some debts had to be repaid. Naturally, they had to be repaid thoroughly. Jun Moxie sneered and said, "Yesterday's various causes, today's retribution. What are you waiting for? Execute." As soon as his voice fell, the butcher's knives fell in the hands of a group of executioners. Today's executioners seemed to be fiercer than in the past. Their work was more careful and neat. Jun Dashao's reputation as a bear tyrant was now well known. He slaughtered living people with a glare, and he slaughtered several people at once. Today, he slaughtered over 100 people in one go, and all of them were executed by 1,000 cuts. How could they not be careful and neat? If they accidentally let their prisoners suffer a few cuts, their entire family would have to be buried with them. Therefore, the group of executioners naturally had to be as meticulous as possible. This also caused many of the people who were being tortured to have zero crimes. As the knives fell, the flesh split open, and blood spurted. A series of earth-shattering screams rang out continuously. Below the stage, some people screamed in fear, their faces pale. Ordinary people were shocked to hear such heart-wrenching screams. Fear was a reasonable thing. However, there was another group of people, all of them standing ramrod straight, watching everything that was happening on the stage with great pleasure, afraid to miss even half a glance. This group of people were dressed in ordinary civilian clothes, but all of them were tall and had weathered faces. They gathered together spontaneously, slowly forming the largest group of onlookers, watching the fluttering flag on the stage in an orderly manner. Their eyes were filled with excitement, eagerness, and nostalgia. These people were Jun Wuhui's former subordinates. After Jun Wuhui's death, many who knew the inside story felt disheartened and left the army. But today, on this big day, they gathered together spontaneously, still in the same formation as when they were in the army, quietly standing below the stage. In everyone's heart, there was a joy of revenge. Death by 1,000 cuts. The scene had officially begun. On the stage, the eyes of the 108 people who were being tortured were fixed on June Mosia. They were well aware that there was no chance for them to escape. But, all of them had the same thought in their minds: remember this kid. Even if there was no chance of survival, everyone had the same thought: remember this brat. So, you must take revenge, even if you have to live for generations to come. So, June Moxie stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the bloody scene in front of him. He said gently, I know that what all of you want to do now is to kill me and take revenge. Even if you don't have the chance in this life, in your next life, in your next life, in every life, you will find me for revenge. So, you must open your eyes wide and look, and remember this face of mine. If there really is a next life, you can find me for revenge. I welcome you at any time, and even reincarnate a few more times, it doesn't matter. He sneered and said, but look at you guys, just look at how you guys screamed after being stabbed, you're not a big deal. Even if you become a ghost, you're just a coward and a good-for-nothing. Drink milk and work hard in your next life. I don't like you guys in this life, but I hope you'll be more successful in your next life. Ha ha ha. A guy raised his head ferociously, blood and sweat dripping down his face, his muscles twisted, and he shouted, get stabbed. You say it so easily, come up and try it. No, you guys should enjoy this super treatment. I'm not in the mood for it. June Moxie snorted. June Moxie, if there really is a next life, I'll kill your whole family. Just wait and see. Wen Sangyu raised his head in pain, and stared at the young man in front of him with endless hatred. Although Wen Sangyu was over 80 years old, he had always been clean and had profound skills, so his physical fitness was excellent. June Moxie was afraid that he might not be able to endure the 9 days of torture because of his age, so he didn't destroy his exquisite Xian Qi, but only broke his Dantian and destroyed his foundation, so that all his Xian Qi could stay in his body and nourish his body, but there was no room for him to use it. Wen Sangyu's naked body was as strong as a teenager. As a great master, he lived a comfortable life, but now he was humiliated in the eyes of the world, and he couldn't die immediately. Naturally, the resentment in his heart reached the extreme. Wen Sangyu, I'm a little scared by your words. But I'm very curious. If there is a next life, will you be a pig or a dog? June Moxie said sarcastically, if you do something wrong and have to pay the price, you should be brave enough to bear the consequences. Why do you have to gnash your teeth and talk about the next life? It will only make me laugh at you. Wen Sangyu was silent, but his bloodshot eyes were still staring straight at June Moxie. Brother Wen, why are you? In the palace, the emperor trembled and suddenly felt powerless, Xiao. At this moment, he suddenly understood. Why did Wen Sangyu appear here and be sentenced to death without saying anything? The empress hadn't returned yet. It seemed that she had been killed by Mr. Wen. And because of this, Wen Sangyu angered June Moxie, so he was punished by 1,000 cuts. He was dead after all. Are you, really dead? Yang Huayu slowly lowered his head, curled up his whole body, and held his shoulders tightly with his hands. He felt extremely lonely and helpless, like a wild beast with nowhere to warm itself in a cold winter night. With 2 rustling sounds, a few drops of tears fell on his sleeves, and then fell to the ground. In the distance, heavy footsteps came. June Moxie looked up and saw Tang Yuan getting off the sedan chair and coming all the way with Sun Xiaomei and a group of guards. When they approached, Tang Yuan raised his head and looked at the military flag fluttering in the air. He bowed deeply and respectfully. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, but Tang Yuan had lost a lot of weight. Compared to before he lost weight, he could be said to be very slim, very slim. Now, he was at most around 300 pounds. It seemed that he had rebounded after losing weight, but it had been stopped. Although the base number of fatties was too large, and he was still much fatter than ordinary people, he still looked more like a human now. June Moxie felt relieved. But at the same time, a peculiar feeling welled up in his heart. He didn't let anyone inform Tang Yuan on this occasion. Although Tang Yuan would definitely know, Jun Moxie believed that Tang Yuan should be able to understand what he meant. The Tang family had always been loyal to the royal family of Tianxiang. They were even the loyal supporters of the Emperor of Tianxiang, Yang Huaiyu. Old Master Tang Wanli and the Emperor had a life-and-death friendship. Therefore, Jun Moxie didn't think that Tang Yuan would come. Once this fatty appeared here, it meant that he would be under great pressure. Just like the other aristocratic families in the capital, although they knew that something big had happened here, they still withdrew as soon as possible. They didn't even dare to watch the show. It was because of this. Perhaps the royal family didn't dare to provoke Jun Moxie or the Jun family because they couldn't do anything to them. However, they still had an absolute advantage against the other aristocratic families. Therefore, the aristocratic families chose to remain silent. They would wait for the curtain to fall and see the reaction before making a decision. Although adding flowers to embroidery was not as good as sending charcoal in the snow, the danger of the former was far less than the latter. Jun Moxie was well aware of this point, and he understood it even more clearly. Therefore, he didn't think that Tang Yuan would appear. He didn't want his brother to be in a difficult position. Fatty would definitely be in a more difficult position than the aristocratic families. On one side was his family, and on the other side was his best brother. It was really a dilemma whether to come or not. But Tang Yuan still came. Not only did he come, he even brought his fiancée with him. He made a grand entrance in broad daylight. This appearance was tantamount to showing his position. The bow to the regretless army flag also showed that there was no turning back for Tang Yuan. He used his actions to show his ultimate position. He didn't even talk to Jun Moxie beforehand. This was the most valuable thing. Jun Moxie felt very gratified in his heart. He had been hanging out with this fatty ever since he crossed over to this world. At first, he treated him as an ordinary fair-weather friend. But step by step, he found that although this fatty was a villain, he had a true temperament. He slowly accepted Fatty's friendship. Fatty could be said to be Hitman Jun's only friend in both of his lives. But Jun Moxie had never imagined that in such a dangerous situation where his entire family would be annihilated, it would be this cowardly and laughable fatty who had become the only one who dared to stand out and openly support him. What is a good brother? Actions always speak louder than words. Jun Moxie floated down from the platform and arrived in front of Tang Yuan. Fatty, what are you doing here? Tang Yuan smiled mischievously. His plump face revealed a wretched smile. Do you still need to ask? You and I are equally famous debauches. Since you're here, how can I not come? You know my temperament. I've always liked to watch a good show. Ha ha ha. This is the death of 1,000 cuts. I might not get to see such a big scene a second time in my life. Wouldn't it be a pity if I didn't come? Wouldn't it be a treasure? Jun Moxie smiled from the bottom of his heart. He patted Tang Yuan's shoulder heavily. Then, he looked at Tang Yuan's fat face in a serious manner. Then, he looked at Sun Xiaomei, and said in a heavy tone, "Good brother." Jun Dashao didn't say anything else. Tang Yuan's plump face was full of a silly smile. His eyes showed a trace of satisfaction and emotion. Sun Xiaomei calmly looked at everything in front of her. She didn't say anything. She just held on to Tang Yuan's hand tightly. This was because this exceptionally intelligent woman knew that even though the Jun family had the absolute upper hand in the current situation, she would never be able to return to the Sun and Tang families if she were to follow Tang Yuan out of the city. After all, that was their roots. Good brother. Chapter 649. Brothers. This was an exceptionally warm word. What was a brother? Going through mountains of blades together, going through seas of fire together, bearing pressure together, not necessarily sharing blessings with you, but if there were misfortunes, we would bear them together. Brothers never need to say anything, they only need to do it. The sound of a horse's hooves could be heard as a horse galloped towards them. As it approached, the rider's hair and beard were all white and his stature was tall and sturdy. It was the head of the Tang family, Tang Wanli. Old Master Tang jumped down from his horse and landed in front of Tang Yuan. His face was full of anger as he panted with rage, "You evil creature! You don't know what's important and what's not. Come back with me." Tang Yuan shrunk his head and said, "Grandpa, please wait for a moment. I will return to the aristocratic hall after I finish paying my respects to Uncle Jun. You bastard, you dare to bargain with your grandpa." Old Master Tang was so angry that his beard flew up high. His face was ashen as he raised his hand. "Grandpa, I can't go back with you, at least not now." Tang Yuan was somewhat afraid of his grandpa even though he had seen many things in recent years. But he still raised his head and argued, "Grandpa, you can risk your life for His Majesty. You can disregard your family and your life. You can do anything at any time because His Majesty has shown you kindness. Moreover, you have gone through life and death together with him. This is a friendship between men, and I understand that. But, you can do anything for His Majesty, and I can do the same for the third young master. Grandpa, you have your friendship, and we have our perseverance, and we have our perseverance." Although the volume of Tang Yuan's voice was small, his tone was getting more and more resolute. "Just like how you still insist on being loyal to the imperial family. Even after so many years, your original intention has not changed. Your grandson certainly admires your moral integrity, but do you wish for your grandson to be a despicable villain? Alas!" Old Master Tang suddenly looked at his grandson in a daze. He raised his hand, but couldn't bring it down. After a long while, the old man let out a long sigh and said dejectedly, "But you? How would you know the pros and cons of this? Just now, third young master called me a good brother." Tang Yuan's face lit up. "I have brothers, blood brothers, but I've never had a brother like this. This is the first, and perhaps the last. Ever since I was young, no one has ever treated me as a friend, and no one has ever treated me, Tang Yuan, as a brother. Third young master is the only one. Whether it was before or now, I've always recognized him as my brother." Tang Yuan said in a low voice, "I am willing to have such a brother for the rest of my life." He looked at old Master Tang and said in a low voice, "Just like how you treated your comrades who risked their lives for you." Tang Wanli stood there in a daze. He suddenly felt that this grandson in front of him was very strange. He had always thought that this grandson of his was already a waste, a glutton, a lazy person, and a good-for-nothing. Even if the former's value had increased 100 times because of the aristocratic hall, he had always thought that he was just a puppet of Jun Moxie. But at this moment, he felt that this grandson had really grown up. He had his own ideas, and could be called a real man. But the position he was standing in was the opposite of his own. Tang Wanli's face darkened as he heaved a long sigh. With some difficulty, he turned around and mounted his horse. He said in a low voice, "You've finally grown up. You have your own choices. In short, you're on your own now, and the Tang family." He didn't finish his sentence. His expression was very complicated. He seemed to be very gratified, but at the same time, he seemed to be very distressed. It was as if he had something to say, but in the end, he couldn't say it. Finally, he only let out a long sigh and squeezed his legs. Tears streamed down Tang Yuan's face. Looking at his grandfather's back and his white hair, he bit his lips and said in his heart, "I'm sorry, grandfather, but I think I'm not wrong." Brother Wanli, Jun Zhantian strode over and called out loudly as he looked at Tang Wanli's back. Tang Wanli stopped his horse but didn't turn around. He said in a deep voice, "Jun Zhantian, you've avenged your son today. You've vented all your grievances and your heart is free. But you, other than in front of the palace, is there no other place for you to set up this high platform? Other than feeling free, do you not have any other thoughts?" Don't you feel a little uncomfortable? Jun Zhantian stood there solemnly and slowly shook his head. Brother Tang, you are not me. There are some things that you won't understand. I know that your heart is not comfortable, but I also don't want this to happen. Black and white, right and wrong, there must be an explanation. How can these grievances be resolved? If you were me, what would you do? Yes. I don't understand. I don't think I will ever understand, but I am very uncomfortable and very angry. Tang Wanli's voice was cold as he said in a low voice, I believe that I am not the only one who feels uncomfortable. My old brothers who were lucky enough to survive that year will also feel uncomfortable. Those old brothers who died on the battlefield, if they are still alive, they will feel even more uncomfortable. Because what you are humiliating is what we fought for thousands of times. Tianxiang is ours. We exchanged our blood and flesh for it. It is the blood of countless people who died on the battlefield. Jun Zhantian, ask Zhu 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 if he is comfortable, ask Murong Fengyun if he is comfortable, ask yourself if you are comfortable. As for the explanation, after today's battle, even though I am not as clear as you about the inside story, I still understand a lot. So, I did not bring my troops here today. Maybe someone has wronged you, but Tianxiang belongs to all of us. It was won by our countless brothers. Tang Wanli Lenglang said, I only know this. I don't know anything else. I am not interested in knowing. Jun Zhantian sighed. That's right. Based on what you said, Tianxiang belongs to all of you. I do not deny this, nor do I have the right to deny it. Jun Moxie smiled and stood up, Old Master Tang, but you seem to have missed out on a few people. I believe that without these people, Tianxiang would not be Tianxiang anymore. Tianxiang does not belong to all of you. It belongs to my father Jun Wu Hui, my second uncle Jun Wu Meng, my third uncle Jun Wu Yi, my eldest brother Jun Mo, my second brother Jun Mo Cho, and the tens of thousands of soldiers who died in Tianguanling. Today's scene may not be comfortable for all of you, but I believe that they will be comfortable for all of you. Jun Mo Xia chuckled and said sharply, if you really want to, I can reveal the truth to the world and let the people of the world judge who is right and wrong. Do you think that your old friends will be even more uncomfortable? They might not understand it as well as you do. Tang Wanli was speechless for a moment. Although he had become a civil servant, he was still a soldier and had experienced countless battles. How could he not understand the thinking of a soldier? As long as one had participated in the war, whether alive or dead, they would stand on the side of the Jun family. Moreover, if this matter were to be made public, then the Tianxiang imperial family would truly go down in infamy for 10,000 years. The sacrifice of a soldier must not be slandered by a villain. No matter if this villain was the emperor or a commoner, there must be an explanation for murdering such a pillar of the army. Otherwise, the world would not be convinced. Jun Moxie smiled and said, you don't have to panic, I will not do that because I disdain to do so. But my surname is Jun, and I am part of the Jun family, so I, Jun Moxie, will not care if you are comfortable or not. I only want them to be comfortable. I feel comfortable too. He said word by word, let my father, second uncle, and 2 brothers feel comfortable, let the innocent 100,000 soldiers who sacrificed their lives feel comfortable. Let the souls of those wronged heroes feel comfortable. So, everyone had their own standpoints. In the face of hatred, there was no reasoning. Not to mention that you can't argue with me, even if you can really talk your way out of this and make me speechless, it would still be meaningless. The debt of that year must be repaid by someone. His hawk-like gaze was as sharp as a sword. Lenglang said word by word, it doesn't matter who this person is. It doesn't matter how high his position is, what he owes must be repaid. Tang Wanli was silent for a moment. Suddenly, he whipped the horse's buttocks and the horse galloped away. Only a long sigh was left, drifting in the wind. On the high platform, the cruelest punishment was still in progress. Grandpa Jun's face was a little ugly as he looked in the direction Tang Wanli left, deep in thought. There is nothing to think about. Everyone has their own standpoint. Grandpa, we are here to collect debts, not to rebel. We did not destroy Tianxiang. Besides, I have never been interested in rebelling. Are you interested? I believe that our Jun family is already disdainful of such splendor and wealth. Jun Moxie smiled. Glory is glory, debt is debt. These are two different things. As for us, we do not need to consider the feelings of others. Justice is in the hearts of the people. If old Master Tang thinks that he can argue with me, he will not leave. Grandpa Jun sighed. He shook his head and said, forget it. Perhaps it will be uncomfortable, but Wu Hui, Wu Meng, Mou and Mo Cho must be avenged. He turned around and said, I will return to the mansion first. You take charge here. He paused and suddenly smiled bitterly. Ridiculous. Since ancient times, how could there be an immortal country? How could there be a ruler of 10,000 years? It was all hard work, all proud, but all turned into dust. Turned into nothingness. Why bother? He mounted his horse and left. The first day. Although it caused an uproar in Tianxiang City, there was no accident. The incessant screams shook the world and the entire palace. The imperial concubines, maids, eunuchs, and guards were all pale and trembling. They were panicking to the extreme, afraid that someone would suddenly break into the palace with a knife and a sword, but on the second day, the death by dismemberment continued, but there were many more unknown people watching. The expressions of these people varied. But it was obvious that they were all very interested in Wen Sangyu on the stage. A supreme being expert of a generation was actually suffering the punishment of death by 1,000 cuts without any resistance. This was rather surprising. Jun Moxie had been paying attention to the movements in the palace. Early the next morning, the heads of the aristocratic families and the courtiers were summoned to the palace and had yet to come out. Jun Moxie was not anxious at all. He looked on coldly. No matter what decision they made, he would accept it. Justice is in the hearts of the people. Chapter 650. From the second day onwards, Dongfang Wen Xian and the rest had all arrived. Even Dugu Xiaoyi, who had always been attached to Jun Moxie, was waiting at home. After all, such a bloody scene was not something that they could handle. Or perhaps it was difficult for the world to be peaceful. Suddenly, a terrifying aura was emitted from the crowd. This shocking aura was mixed with surging anger. Jun Moxie instantly sensed it. He squinted his eyes and looked up. 2 rays of cold light shot out from his squinted eyes. In the crowd, 2 figures were particularly eye-catching. No matter where they went, it was as if a large ship was sailing across the surface of the water, leaving a path for them to pass. The person in front was tall and handsome. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s, but at the same time, he looked to be in his 50s or 60s. It was impossible to tell his actual age. His face was thin and his eyes were cold. He wore a crown on his head and was wearing a hemp robe. He was walking towards Jun Moxie step by step. As for the person behind him, Jun Moxie recognized him. Supreme Golden City's 3 Pearls Throne, Xiao Weicheng. The position of the person in front seemed to be even higher than Xiao Weicheng's in Supreme Golden City. There was still a distance of 20 to 30 feet between them, but Jun Moxie could already feel an oppressive chill. Behind Jun Moxie, Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun both revealed a shocked expression. This person's strength had obviously completely exceeded their expectations. Jun Moxie leaned against the armchair. His expression and posture did not change at all. He looked at the 2 people walking towards him, but his eyes became more and more gloomy. You are Jun Moxie. The person was expressionless. He looked at Jun Moxie as if he was looking at air and asked in an indifferent tone. Such a posture was like a god talking to a mortal. It was full of condescension and condescension. It was as if he was saying, I'm giving you face by talking to you. Oh. Don't you know I'm June Moxie? Then you can guess who I am. June Moxie rolled his eyes and looked at this person mockingly. Brat, you have a sharp tongue. The man shouted in a desolate voice. A majestic aura that was as heavy as a mountain suddenly pressed down. This powerful aura only targeted June Moxie. Even the solitary eagle and Feng Wanyun behind him were not affected. This kind of precise grasp, the pinnacle of control, really reached the level of a breathtaking level. It was a pity that June Moxie was still lying lazily on the armchair with a faint smile on his face. He didn't unleash his aura to counterattack. Instead, he just casually leaned against the chair as if he didn't notice anything. An imposing aura attack. That really scared me to death. With the Hengjun Pagoda, this young master is least afraid of aura attacks. No matter how strong your aura is, can it be stronger than the Hengjun Pagoda? Go and embarrass yourself. That person only felt his enormous imposing aura that was as vast and majestic as a mountain pressing down heavily, yet it was as if he had been pressed into the ocean, yet it was also as if he had been pressed into the air, and there was not the slightest place for him to exert any force. His surefire suppression method was actually ineffective. This kind of feeling was extremely unbearable. With a wave of his sleeves, the imposing aura disappeared instantly. That person's cold face was still expressionless, but there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. Not bad indeed. As expected of someone that Venerable May has taken a liking to. You're really impressive. June Moxie slowly raised his eyelids and asked indifferently, Who are you? His voice and expression were even more indifferent and arrogant than the hemp-robed man's expression. If the hemp-robed man's expression was that of a god, then June Moxie's was that of the Jade Emperor, arrogant enough. I'm Du Ju. Du Ju looked at June Moxie's eyes with his sharp eyes and said word by word, I'm the Heartless Venerable. He didn't turn around. He raised one hand and pointed at the stage. He said indifferently, Wen Sung Yu is my man. He was waiting for June Mo Xia to reveal a shocked expression on his face. The Heartless Venerable, Du Ju. This was a legendary name that could change the world when it was announced in the past. Although he had been away from the mortal world for almost 200 years, and many people might not know the glory of this name, he believed that June Moxie must know. Because June Moxie had a mysterious master and a confidant who was also a venerable. So you're Du Ju. June Moxie's lips twitched slightly. No wonder King Master Shao didn't even dare to breathe loudly behind you. The Heartless Venerable is really impressive. But I don't know why you've come here and come to me. What do you want? Tell me what you really want. Let Wen Sung Yu go. Du Ju clasped his hands behind his back, his eyes cold as he spoke in a commanding tone. Even if the people of Gold City are in the wrong, it is not up to you to punish them. They are not people you can humiliate. Let him go now. For the sake of your master, I can let bygones be bygones and let bygones be bygones. Let bygones be bygones. How magnanimous. For the sake of my master. June Moxie smiled weirdly. Do you know who my master is? How can you let me go because of him? It turned out that his face was actually so big. It's such an honor for a venerable like you to give him face. Du Ju's face darkened. He looked at June Moxie and didn't say anything else. At the same time, an extremely solemn and oppressive atmosphere formed in the air. It was so heavy that everyone present felt suffocated. Solitary Eagle straightened his body and took a step forward. His beard and hair fluttered behind him. Facing the Heartless Venerable, Solitary Eagle didn't retreat or show any fear. Instead, he stepped forward. On the other side, although Feng Wanyun did not move, his white robes fluttered despite the lack of wind. His fair hand also slowly landed on the hilt of his sword. His 5 fingers, dry and strong, firmly gripped the hilt of the sword. His eyes were as sharp as swords. A hint of disdain appeared on Du Ju's face. He just stood there silently without any movement. He didn't even raise his eyebrows. However, he was like a volcano that was about to erupt, emitting a terrifying aura that shook the heavens and earth. Such a terrifying aura was visible to the naked eye. Even ordinary people, if they paid close attention, would notice that there seemed to be a distorted space in this area. It was a mysterious and subtle feeling. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun didn't move, but beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. The two of them didn't think that this heartless venerable's cultivation had actually reached such a level. He didn't move, but he could use his own aura to mobilize the power of heaven and earth and use it to suppress them. Such a huge power was not something they could withstand. How could they fight against the heavens? This was no longer a simple aura. Instead, it was something that Du Ju had comprehended many years ago. He was able to use his own body's vital qi to form a temporary resonance with a mysterious energy between the heavens and earth. With a single thought, he could control this energy to attack. This had always been Du Ju's trump card. Facing Jun Moxie, he didn't need to use such an extreme method. However, Du Ju knew that he wasn't dealing with just Jun Moxie. Although Jun Moxie wasn't weak, he wasn't worthy of Du Ju's attention. This power of his was actually for one person to see, Jun Moxie's master. Du Ju wanted to tell this master, if I want to kill your disciple and destroy the Jun family, it's a piece of cake. However, I came here personally and even showed mercy to your disciple because of your existence. Regardless of whether the other party appreciated it or not, he had at least expressed his standpoint. Usually, at this point, both parties would take a step back. Du Ju would bring his disciple away, and the Jun family would forget about it. I've given you enough face, so you have to give me some face too, right? This was Du Ju's plan. Du Ju was very afraid of the legendary master of the Jun family. Although he was heartless, he wasn't stupid. The 90 masters from the 3 holy lands dared to try and kill Venerable Mei, let alone Du Ju. However, such a terrifying combination of forces would be completely defeated by the other party's aura. Du Ju knew that he wasn't a match for him. Therefore, although he was overbearing now, only an expert of his level would know that Du Ju was expressing goodwill. In this way, without leaving any trace, he could get things done without worrying about losing face. It was the best of both worlds. A strange look flashed across Jun Moxie's eyes. It was as if he was surprised, but also, something else. Following that, his face turned serious. He had been leaning against the chair all this while, but now, he finally moved. He raised his head slightly, revealing a look of shock and surprise as he looked at Du Ju in front of him. However, there was still a look of him gritting his teeth and holding on. Although it seemed like he was trying his best to hide it, a careful person would be able to see it at a glance. Du Ju snorted coldly and stood with his hands behind his back. He asked, "How does it feel? Does it feel good?" Jun Moxie seemed to be in a lot of pain. One could faintly see the blood vessels and pulse under his skin trembling slightly. It seemed like he couldn't bear the burden, but he could still hold on. He forced an indifferent expression and said in an indifferent tone, "It feels good. It really feels good. No, it feels too good. Too good." Du Ju snorted softly and smiled coldly, "Is that so? Then I'll let you feel even better." After saying that, he once again increased the power of his aura. However, he was feeling strange in his heart. Why hasn't the master come out yet? Du Ju had a million reasons to believe that the peerless master was in Tianxiang City. He was in the Jun family's residence. Otherwise, how could the Jun family dare to deal with the people of the Great Golden City in public? What a joke! Could it be that I haven't oppressed Jun Moxie enough? This level of power isn't enough to lure him out. Is he that confident in his disciple? Jun Moxie groaned in a low voice. His head seemed to be suppressed by his aura. One could clearly see the blue veins on the back of his neck bulging. Chapter 651. Does it feel good now? Du asked indifferently, with a hint of mockery. He had already used 30% of his strength, which was already quite impressive. Even a supreme being expert might not be able to withstand it. Although Jun Moxie's strength was not ordinary, it was only around the level of a supreme being. This kind of strength was believed to be enough. But the reality was just that unexpected. Of course, it feels good. If you could use a little more strength, it would feel even better. Jun Moxie gritted his teeth, sweat dripping down his face, as if it was very difficult for him to say each word. Very good. As expected, your bones are tough enough. Since you've already spoken, then this seat will naturally let you feel good to the end. Du took a deep breath, and suddenly raised his strength to the 5th level. Only a small portion was used to deal with Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun, while the majority of his strength was placed on Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie's feet made a crack sound, but his body seemed to straighten up again, as if he was stubborn to the point of not turning back until he hit the wall, and not shedding tears until he saw the coffin. Du frowned slightly, and said, "Are you still going to persist?" Du did not dare to go too far. If he really killed this youth in front of him, the consequences would not be a joke. Jun Moxie lowered his head slightly, and said as if he was gritting his teeth, "Don't. Old thing. This young master has experienced this kind of situation many times. With this weak pressure of yours, you actually think you're so great. This young master has not had enough fun yet, why? Old thing, do you have no more strength?" A strange scarlet light flashed in Duju's eyes, and his body that had been standing straight suddenly moved slightly. Actually, it was just his head leaning forward a little. But the pressure actually multiplied in an instant. His body was like a towering mountain towering in the clouds, unmoving. But that kind of vast pressure that connected the heavens was enough to subdue even the heroes of the world. But in reality, Duju was also a little depressed, and he was even in a dilemma. Although it was said to be friendly, this kid in front of him was too resistant. He had already used 60% of his strength, yet he was still able to withstand it. If he rashly added more, it would exceed the scope of his control, and unpredictable consequences might occur at any time. If it wasn't handled properly, then the consequences wouldn't be showing goodwill, but a demonstration. It was even to the extent that if he killed this kid on the spot, he would form an irreconcilable enmity and make an unparalleled enemy. But if he were to stop now, this brat's face would be full of dissatisfaction and would not appreciate his kindness at all. His old undying master also did not come out. In the eyes of outsiders, wouldn't it mean that he had lost a move? If that were to happen, he would really lose his head and face. Wouldn't he, the heartless venerable, become a laughing stock in front of everyone? He could clearly feel that this kid was barely hanging on, so why couldn't he admit defeat even now? Could it be that his master often used this method to train him? Yes. That's right. Jun Moxie let out another muffled groan. But he opened his mouth and laughed bitterly, saying, "It feels so good." Continue. Duju was furious. For hundreds of years, how many people had dared to provoke him like this? This little bastard who was still wet behind the ears was challenging his limits again and again. A green light flashed in his eyes, and his eyeballs suddenly turned into a faint silvery white color, flashing and disappearing. At the same time, the pressure in the air was like a small hill that had just fallen down, and then another small hill smashed into that small hill. Boom! A soundless rumble sounded. The surrounding people were shocked to see that above Jun Moxie's head, there was a space of a few hundred feet that had suddenly turned into a pitch-black hole. A black that was darker than ink. It was daytime. Not only was the sun shining brightly, but the snow was also reflected clearly. But if one looked at the top of Jun Moxie's head, it was even more obvious that it was nighttime. 80% of his strength. The heartless venerable Duju had 80% of his strength. Even if Mei Xuan was here, she would also have to be careful when dealing with him. As Jun Moxie felt this pressure, he suddenly felt an indescribable sense of ecstasy. That's right, ecstasy. When Du-ju had just mobilized this heaven and earth spiritual energy pressure, Jun Moxie had already felt something strange. As Du-ju's pressure approached his body, Jun Moxie first felt a heavy pressure. Then, he felt the Hongjun pagoda in his mind suddenly open, spinning at a high speed. But this time, it did not release a huge amount of spiritual energy like before. Instead, a large amount of spiritual energy suddenly separated from Du-ju's pressure, turning into a dense white fog, and was instantly swallowed by the Hongjun pagoda. And this time, the spiritual energy was unusually thick and pure. Moreover, it was mixed with a slightly majestic atmosphere. Jun Moxie quickly understood what this atmosphere was. This was the heaven and earth chi. At the same time, Jun Moxie felt that after the Hongjun pagoda refined this portion of energy, when it entered his body, his spiritual energy grew at a rate that was actually 10 times faster than before. What the hell was going on? But as for what exactly is going on, although Jun Moxie was not clear, he was not willing to delve into it at this time. Right now, Jun Mo Xia was like a dried-up pond, while Du-ju was making use of his own abilities like a no. It was like hundreds of high-powered water pumps, drawing water from other places and forcefully pouring it into Jun Moxie's meridians. Where else could he find such a good thing? It was truly a great feeling, a great feeling. So when Jun Moxie said to Du-ju that he was very happy, he was definitely speaking from the bottom of his heart. So, Jun Moxie would not waste such an opportunity. In fact, he was shouting in his heart, "Come again. Don't stop. The more the better. I don't mind even if you continue until the end of time. Damn it, if you continue to squeeze me like this, I will soon break through the 5th level of the art of creation." So Jun Moxie immediately acted as if he was about to collapse, but at the same time, he was not going to collapse. This gave Du-ju an illusion, this kid is going to collapse soon. Just a little more strength, and he will be finished, but he had already increased his strength several times, and Jun Moxie was still in this half-dead state. Du-ju finally became angry. So, he increased his strength step by step. This phenomenon, Jun Moxie did not know what was going on, and Du-ju was naturally even more confused, but in the end, it was because of one word, spiritual chi. The Hongjun pagoda was extremely sensitive to spiritual chi. Once it encountered a place with an abundance of spiritual chi, it would open and absorb it. But in this densely populated Tianxiang city, the Hongjun pagoda did not bother to absorb the spiritual chi here. Unless it was the pure heaven and earth chi that Jun Moxie absorbed during his cultivation, the Hongjun pagoda was not interested in anything else. But this time, it was different for Du-ju. His cultivation was too high. He could actually mobilize a large amount of heaven and earth chi for his own use. He could directly compress the power of the heaven and earth, and then press it down to become his own attack. This kind of brilliant method, even if it was against a venerable expert of the same level, it would still be able to make the other party look miserable. This was similar to Mei Shuyan's world cage. How could the power of the heaven and earth be ordinary? But this kind of supreme weapon that could be used to deal with others had fallen into Jun Moxie's hands today, and had become his greatest tonic. Because this kind of power was simply great news for the Hongjun pagoda. To think that there was actually such a person who had painstakingly gathered the heaven and earth chi and forcefully poured it into the Hongjun pagoda, and it was the kind that he could not do without. So, everything was very dramatic. And what made Jun Dashao even more pleasantly surprised was that under this kind of compression, Du-ju had to first mobilize his own mental strength to communicate with the heaven and earth chi, then he could further mobilize the heaven and earth chi to attack. But what the Hongjun pagoda lacked was the heaven and earth chi. There was no shortage of spiritual chi, but the heaven and earth chi was a vast amount of chi. With Jun Moxie's current strength, he could not absorb much, and he often needed the Hongjun pagoda to compensate him, but now, this heartless venerable had used the supreme Xian technique that he had bitterly cultivated for hundreds of years, and put on the demeanor of a peerless expert. He stood with his hands behind his back, proudly facing the wind, and used a posture that best reflected the demeanor of an expert. His expression did not change, and in a short period of time, he had actually directly replenished a lot of the heaven and earth chi. He had almost made up for all the previous losses, and even exceeded them by a little. Such a wonderful thing was naturally unknown to Jun Moxie. But this did not affect Jun Dashao's original intention of silently making a fortune. Under Jun Dashao's superb acting, sometimes he gritted his teeth, hissed, and gasped for breath, his face ashen, and his lips pale. Sometimes his bones would crack, and his face would sweat profusely. His feet were stepping on the bluestone ground, and 2 pieces of bluestone had already broken, and the ones at the sides were also showing signs of cracking. Even Du Ju was worried for him. If he exerted a little more strength, would he crush this kid into meat paste on the spot? But he could clearly feel that if he exerted a little more strength, this kid would be convinced, and wouldn't be able to hold on anymore. One more point, one more point, one more point, one more point, just like that, the 2 of them were in a deadlock. If Du Ju knew that the strongest attack that he was so proud of had become the opponent's tonic, and that the opponent was gritting his teeth and enjoying it, as if he was enjoying a massage, this heartless venerable would definitely scream in embarrassment, and then spit out a mouthful of blood and die. And he would die with everlasting regret. For hundreds of years, when had the heartless venerable ever been played like this? It was not that he wanted to do good, but Jun Moxie's body was really too strange. Chapter 652. Du Ju was already caught between a rock and a hard place. Right now, he had already used 80% of his strength, and it had already exceeded the limits of what he could control. However, it was still possible for him to forcefully retract his strength. He was also planning to forcefully retract his strength the moment something went wrong. At most, he would just suffer some damage to his vitality. But this stubborn boy was still gritting his teeth and holding on. This made Du Ju feel that he cherished his talent. As a young boy, Jun Moxie was probably the first one in history to be able to resist to this extent. If he increased his strength again, it would really be beyond his control. It was easy to release, but difficult to withdraw. If he was not careful, he was afraid that the young boy in front of him would suffer a terrible injury that he could never recover from. Moreover, it would leave a shadow in his mind that was similar to the devil in his heart, and he would never be able to make any progress. That would really be an irreconcilable hatred. Putting himself in Du Ju's shoes, if Du Ju had such an outstanding disciple but was forcefully turned into a cripple, he would also disregard everything to take revenge. Thinking of this, Du Ju had decided to stop. Since that master still doesn't show up, I will kidnap Wen Sang Yu and leave. I think he will know that I have been merciful when he comes back, so it should be no big deal, but at this moment, he heard Jun Moxie's extremely annoying words again. You really don't know what's good for you. I have been merciful from the beginning to the end. But you, a dead duck, not only are you stubborn, you even dare to mock me. Du Ju was furious, and subconsciously increased the power of the coercion directly to the peak. Everyone in the square suddenly felt their vision darken, and their feet shook. Even the high platform swayed a little. With the power of the aftermath, one could imagine the pressure that the people who took it all had to bear. An unprecedented majestic force instantly pressed down, and the Hongjun Pagoda swallowed it all. There was still more, like the continuous waves of the sea, and like the waves of the Yangtze River, each wave higher than the previous one. The Hongjun Pagoda was naturally not afraid of the incoming spiritual energy. In the most hospitable manner, it absorbed all the spiritual energy that had forcefully entered, not wasting a single bit. Jun Moxie felt as if his meridians were about to explode. It felt so good, so good. This continued for a moment. Suddenly, the pressure on his body lightened. Du Ju had suddenly cut off the source. Du Ju was infuriated by Jun Moxie to the point of exploding. But after he exploded, he suddenly regretted it. It's over. This kid was definitely finished. However, he had already mobilized the maximum amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy that he could bear. He had to vent it out, because even his body could not bear this wave of heaven and earth spiritual energy. After enduring the first wave with great difficulty, Duju hurriedly stopped, feeling an inexplicable sense of apprehension in his heart. However, Jun Mo Xia suddenly moved, and slowly raised his head. His lips still had traces of teeth marks, and the corners of his eyes were twitching. His complexion was deathly pale, and his face was ashen. It was obvious that he had died and come back to life. But, he was fine. He was fine. How could he be fine? How could this be possible? Duju stared at the little monster in front of him, and was almost speechless from shock. Whether Jun Moxie was on the verge of collapse, Duju could not be sure. In any case, Duju himself was really on the verge of collapse. A 17 or 18-year-old boy had actually withstood the full power of a middle-level venerable combined with the pressure of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Who would believe such a thing if it was told to others? It was truly sensational. Was this kid a human or a ghost? Although Duju's face was as indifferent as before, his heart was already in turmoil. Indeed, a great teacher produces a great disciple. But such a talent was really too dangerous. Jun Moxie slowly raised his head, and actually smiled. Venerable Du, why, don't you let me have fun? I haven't had enough fun yet. Venerable Du's methods are powerful enough, but unfortunately, they don't last long enough, and I can't enjoy them to my heart's content. What's wrong with giving up halfway? His tone was filled with deep disappointment and dissatisfaction. He was like a resentful woman who was about to climax but was poured down with a bucket of cold water. Very resentful, heaven and earth could be his witness. When Jun Dashao said this, he was 100% sincere, from the bottom of his heart. He really wanted to have fun for a while longer. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But in Duju's ears, it became the most vicious sarcasm. How could he get out of this situation? Duju's venomous snake-like eyes stared fixedly at young Master Jun, not blinking for a moment. Suddenly, with a muffled snort, he raised his palm without even turning his head, slamming it down heavily onto the stage. A sharp whistling sound broke through the air. The next moment, Wen Songyu, who was on the platform, felt as if his chest was smashed by a 10,000-pound sledgehammer. With a bang, he flew up with the wooden stake. His body cracked in mid-air, and then he split into countless pieces like a bomb, and fell on the high platform. Under the high platform, there was blood and flesh on the ground. No one would ever recognize that the blood and flesh on the ground were once the elegant Wen Songyu. The place where Duju hit was at least 300 feet away from Wen Songyu. From such a long distance, even an ordinary archer might not be able to shoot from such a distance and with such accuracy. But Duju just raised his hand and smashed a living person into pieces with his air-splitting palm. The heartless venerable was indeed extraordinary. Duju turned around and didn't look at Jun Moxie anymore. He closed his eyes slightly, and the people in front of him could clearly see an unprecedented crazy killing intent in the heartless venerable's eyes. However, he tried his best to restrain himself. The palm just now more or less vented some of his crazy killing intent. Tell your master that Duju came to visit. It's a pity that we didn't have the chance to meet. If I have time in the future, I'll come again to learn from you. I've already dealt with the people from Jin City. Jun Moxie, let me give you a piece of advice. It's better for young people to restrain themselves. After Duju finished speaking, he did not even turn his head and continued walking forward. Xiao Weiqing followed behind him, not saying a single word from start to end. The two of them floated out of the hall. Wherever he went, the crowd would part and make way for him involuntarily. The silhouettes of the two flashed and then disappeared. From the beginning to the end, Duju didn't look back because he was afraid that if he turned back, he wouldn't be able to control himself and would cripple Jun Moxie on the spot, or even kill him. Du Zhu was sure that if Jun Moxie continued to develop at this speed, then the title of the world's #1 expert, which had never appeared since the beginning of time, would belong to him. It was too dangerous to keep such a person with limitless potential alive, and moreover, he was an enemy. However, when it came to killing him, even the great Golden City couldn't bear the consequences. Not to mention the mysterious and powerful master behind Jun Moxie, just the Tian Fa forest alone was not something that the great Golden City could bear. Perhaps, they really dared to besiege Venerable Mei. However, there was a precondition: Venerable Mei wasn't in the Tian Fa forest. If Venerable Mei stayed in the Tian Fa forest peacefully, who would dare to touch the tiger's whiskers? Not to mention the 10 great masters, even if there were 100 times more of them, who would dare to do it? No matter how many people there were, as long as they entered the Tian Fa forest, even a top expert like Du Zhu couldn't guarantee that they could come out alive. If Venerable Mei really mobilized the mystical beasts to attack in a fit of rage, then, Du Zhu could be sure that no matter which family from the 3 holy lands, they would be razed to the ground in a day. Du Zhu was well aware of the terror of Tian Fa. If a group of wild wolves was organized, they could fight against 1,000 soldiers, let alone the hundreds of millions of mystical beasts in the Tian Fa forest. King. He could mobilize all the power of Tian Fa. Jun Moxie watched the two of them leave and almost couldn't help but pull Du Zhu back. Damn, you're leaving just like that. Isn't that too irresponsible? But I haven't leveled up yet. As Du Zhu stopped, the Hongjun pagoda in Jun Moxie's mind also stopped rotating, and it slowly descended in satisfaction. The benefits of Du Zhu's forceful installation were not small. The heaven and earth spiritual energy mobilized by a venerable level expert was not a small amount. At the very least, when Jun Moxie circulated his cultivation, he found it difficult to absorb the heaven and earth spiritual energy. This also proved that Du Zhu, the great Venerable Du, had almost exhausted all the heaven and earth spiritual energy within a radius of tens of li. How much energy was this? It was too terrifying. Especially that final full-strength compression, it was like a tsunami, forcefully squeezing all the heaven and earth spiritual energy into the Hongjun pagoda. This gift could not be said to not be generous. If Du Zhu used the heaven and earth spiritual energy to cultivate, he would only be able to use 1/10,000,000th of it at most. Mobilizing the heaven and earth spiritual energy was one thing, but directly turning it into one's own strength was another. Just like how we can use a knife to kill people, but we cannot turn the knife into a part of ourselves, this is the same logic. But facing a freak like Jun Moxie, it was a completely different matter. Not to mention that Du Zhu had only mobilized the heaven and earth spiritual energy within a radius of tens of li. Even if he mobilized the entire world's heaven and earth spiritual energy, the Hongjun pagoda would not refuse. It would still accept everything, and absolutely not a single drop would be wasted. The result of this force-feeding operation was that Jun Moxie's meridians were directly bursting to the brim. Jun Dashao, who had just broken through to the 4th level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, directly shot up like a rocket. It was as if a deity was supporting him, and with a whoosh, he directly reached the peak of the 4th level. A typical windfall. But such a good thing made Jun Moxie very angry. There was no way he could not be angry. Because Jun Moxie had already felt that his Heaven's Fortune 4th level had reached the level where his meridians were bursting to the brim, which meant that the next step was to break through to the 5th level. But at this critical juncture, Du Zhu had stopped his attack. What the fuck, isn't he playing with me? Jun Dashao cursed in his heart, and for a moment, he was extremely disappointed. No matter what, you should let me break through before you leave. Now that I'm in the mood, you withdraw before the climax arrives. Be a good person to the end, and help the Buddha to the west. What's the matter with giving up halfway? This guy didn't even think that the heaven and earth spiritual energy that was forcibly instilled into him this time would directly give him a huge benefit. How could he not be satisfied? After all, they were enemies. Jun Moxie was furious. In such a mood, he didn't even notice the fact that when Sang Yu was smashed by Du Ju's palm, all he could think of was, how can I get this old guy back and let him do it again? This young master, I like this kind of abuse so much. Of course, Jun Moxie was very disappointed. The feeling of being interrupted when he was about to break through was indeed not a good one. But, if Du Ju knew about this heartless venerable would probably force himself into a dead end in the blink of an eye, and he wouldn't live no matter what. So depressing. Chapter 653. Mayor Du, after meeting Jun Moxie today, what do you think of him? Xiao Weiqing asked cautiously as they walked. The information is wrong. Seriously distorted. Du Ju Lengleng said. His body was moving very fast, but his voice was normal. In the previous information, it was said that Jun Moxie is just a young master of an aristocratic family. By chance, he became the disciple of a great master. Relying on his master as his backing, he is insufferably arrogant. It was said that he relied on his pretty face and flowery words to gain the favor of the venerable Mei. This is simply an additional 3 levels of scoundrel. Xiao Weiqing, after we go back this time, the intelligence department that you are in charge of must be reorganized. This is simply dereliction of duty to the extreme. This is intolerable. A cruel look appeared on Du Ju's face as he said heavily, Jun Moxie, this child's talent is unparalleled in this world. With his age and cultivation speed, even if he might not be able to last forever, it is definitely unprecedented. He is definitely a super genius that will not appear even in millions of years. But the intelligence department said that such a genius is useless. To a certain extent, it misled our actions and caused us to suffer a great loss. This is simply an unforgivable mistake. He paused, and his tone revealed a deep sense of fear. An 18-year-old boy can actually withstand my full power of spiritual power and not even suffer a serious injury. Jun Moxie's strength must at least be at the level of a superior supreme, or even higher. Xiao Weiqing, an 18-year-old superior supreme, do you know what this means? In the past, when I heard of his master's vast divine power, I was still quite doubtful. I did not believe that there could be such a person in this world. Today, seeing the strength of his disciple, it is really unbelievable. With such a disciple, one can imagine the strength of his master. Previously, I still had a slight desire to win, but now that I think about it, I really overestimated myself. I have not stepped into the world for a long time, and have become a frog at the bottom of a well. Let's not talk about his master. Just based on that Jun Moxie alone, I believe that with just a little more time, he will be able to look down on his generation, and no one will be able to stand up to him. Xiao Weiqing took a deep breath. His expression was ugly, but he didn't say anything. Don't say that I'm exaggerating his abilities because I'm unable to subdue him. But do you know that ever since the Xian continent came into existence, there have been countless Xian cultivators and there have been many legendary figures? But even the most outstanding genius in history was only the profound Saint Guanmeng from 3,000 years ago. He was a peerless genius who reached the level of Xinxian at the age of 18. Apart from him, no one else, whether it was before or after him, had been able to surpass this age and level. But even with the peerless talent of a profound sage, advancing to the 5th layer of the Xinxian realm, which is the so-called supreme realm, would have to be done after the age of 20. Du Ju clenched his teeth and said, but this Jun Moxie actually reached the superior supreme level at the age of 18. That's 8 levels higher than Guanmeng. What a terrifying thing this is. If we really let Jun Moxie grow up, even with the strength of the 3 holy lands, we may not be able to be in his eyes. At that time, the entire pugilistic world will belong to Jun Moxie alone. Ah. It's really that serious. Xiao Weiqing's eyes widened. After today's incident, Xiao Weiqing finally realized how terrifying Jun Moxie was. But he didn't expect it to be so serious. Just like what Du Ju had said earlier, Xiao Weiqing really thought that Du Ju was praising his master and disciple just to save face. At least, there was a reason behind it. Serious? That's serious. There's something even more serious. You haven't even realized it yet. Du Ju said coldly, right now, the three holy lands and Venerable Mei have become sworn enemies. And Venerable Mei is Jun Moxie's woman. Don't tell me that Jun Moxie is a pretty boy and has a relationship with Venerable Mei. Because, with Jun Moxie's potential, even if his partner is Venerable Mei, he may not be qualified. If the two of them are working together, it's still possible. But if it's really my judgment, it might be that Venerable Mei has borrowed a lot of benefits from Jun Moxie. If Tian Fa really appeared in the human world, their strength would be considerable, but it wouldn't be that scary. Because no matter how powerful Tian Fa is, they can't be compared to human Xian cultivators. But if she has a strong ally like Jun Moxie, and they work together. If we don't stop them, the three holy lands will be annihilated in no time. No man can tolerate other forces plotting against his woman, especially Jun Moxia, this unruly and unruly son. Based on Jun Moxie's cultivation progress, he has already reached the level of Superior Supreme at the age of 18. Then, it can be predicted that he will reach the level of Venerable before the age of 20. Before the age of 25, he might surpass the level of Venerable, or even higher. If we wait for him to live peacefully until the age of 30. Then, the three holy lands don't have to work hard anymore. They can just wait to be annihilated. In Du Ju's voice, there was an obvious fear, a great fear. It can't be that fast, right? This is too unimaginable. Xiao Weiqing was still unconvinced. The process of accumulating Xian Qi is not that easy. Even if it's just the accumulation of strength and the improvement of mental state, especially when it's above Shen Xian, there has always been a saying that Shen Xian is at the 12th grade, every step is like ascending to the heavens. It's not something that can be achieved in 3 to 5 years. Do you think I don't understand what you're saying? But let me ask you, is it really impossible? Du Ju snorted, Xiao Weiqing, you are now at the level of Superior Supreme. 10th grade Shen Xian, how old are you this year? I have experienced 178 winters and summers. Xiao Weiqing was startled and answered. That's right, it's not even 200 winters and summers. Considering your age, your progress can be said to be quite fast. Then think about it. How long have you been practicing Xian Qi? Du Ju Lengleng said. I started practicing Xian Qi at the age of 3. I successfully broke through to the Silver Xian realm at the age of 9. At the age of 12, I rose to the Golden Xian realm. At the age of 16, I was already at the Earth Xian realm. At the age of 19, I reached the Tian Xian realm. At the age of 25, I reached the peak of Tian Xian realm. At the age of 30, I successfully broke through to the Shen Xian realm. At that time, I was the most outstanding one in the family. Xiao Weiqing revealed a look of nostalgia. At the age of 49, I broke through to the Supreme realm. Then, I continued to accumulate, until I reached the level of Superior Supreme at the age of 90. After that, I spent close to 80 years to reach my current level. Recalling the past, Xiao Weiqing suddenly felt that the years were long and he could not help but sigh in his heart. In other words, you can already be considered a genius in the eyes of ordinary people for your current achievements at the age of 178. Is that so? When you were 18, you were only at the Earth Xian realm, right? But, you have practiced for 178 years, and you are only at the same level as the current Jun Moxie, and he is only 18 years old. If you are a genius, then, what is Jun Moxie? Is there a problem with me saying that he is a peerless genius that has never been seen before? Du Ju snorted and asked, and, on what basis do you think that with Jun Moxie's unprecedented advancement, why can't Jun Moxie reach the honorable realm before the age of 20? The current you, do you still dare to say such words? Xiao Weiqing's body trembled, and he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His mouth was agape, and he had an expression of extreme shock on his face. That's right, I wouldn't have known if I didn't compare myself to him. I only paid attention to Jun Moxie's arrogance and despotism, but I didn't pay attention to his demon-like talent. Back then, I was already a super genius that made my family ecstatic. My cultivation speed was also once regarded as a demon-like speed by everyone. But, compared to the current Jun Moxie, Xiao Weiqing suddenly felt sorrowful. Comparisons are odious. So, the gap between two people can actually be so big. Now, do you understand how scary Jun Moxie is? Du Ju Lengleng looked at him. Then, City Lord Du means. A ruthless look appeared in Xiao Weiqing's eyes. If that's the case, if this Jun Moxie continues like this, won't he become a hidden danger for our 3 holy lands? If it was possible, I would have killed him with my palm just now. There were even a few times when I wanted to make a move. But, killing him so brazenly like this, can't, absolutely can't. Du Ju said solemnly, Jun Moxie must die. There's no need to doubt this. We can also cause a dispute because of his death, but we can't let them know that it was us who did it. He frowned and looked into the distance, revealing a thoughtful look. Venerable Mei is one thing, but the more important thing is that master of Jun Moxie. Judging from Jun Moxie's master, if the disciple is already like this, how scary would his master be? Even our 3 holy lands are no match for this great enmity. Even if we can succeed, we'll have to pay a heavy price. Which side is he from? Could it be someone from the Misty Mansion? What we need to do now is to rush back to Gold City as soon as possible. Du Ju made a prompt decision. Order the intelligence department to increase their efforts and keep an eye on Jun Moxie's movements at all times. Do not let go of even the slightest bit of movement. We must gather the elite forces of the 3 holy lands to the Silver Blizzard City on the 2nd day of the 2nd month of spring. That would be the best opportunity to kill the Xian Beast Kings of Tian Fa. And, it would also be the best opportunity to deal with Jun Moxie. After all, you must strike a fatal blow when dealing with an opponent like Jun Moxie. That's because he won't give his opponent a second chance to threaten his life. In addition, Jun Moxie and the Jun family are irreconcilable enemies with the Tianxiang imperial family. If possible, create some trouble for him in the secular world. Even if he doesn't have a weakness, we must create one. Restrain him. We can't let him develop too quickly. Focus on Jun Moxie himself. The strength of the rest of the Jun family may not be weak in the eyes of the secular world, but they're nothing in the eyes of our 3 holy lands. We may be able to restrain him, but we're only allowed to get rid of that thief Jun. It doesn't matter even if we ignore the rest of the Jun family. Once the time is ripe, be ready to strike like a thunderbolt. Xiao Weiqing didn't understand what he was talking about, and could only nod in agreement. Chapter 654. The 9 consecutive days of death by 1,000 cuts finally came to an end. The Wuhui army flag was once again standing proudly in the Tianxiang city, fluttering high in the sky. During these 9 days, the nobles and officials kept coming to the Jun family in waves, demanding that this unsightly show be stopped. Their reasons were endless, and every one of them was reasonable. However, Jun Moxie firmly refused them all. You have 1,000 reasons, but I have a set of rules. Those who squeaked too much were directly put down and beaten up. If they did not stop, their legs were directly broken. In this world where the fist was the biggest reason, the fist was the best reason. What's more, if this little drama was dissuaded, then the real drama would not be staged. The so-called real drama was naturally the thing that Jun Moxie had promised to do, complete the burial of Murong Xiu and Yi Gohan. Wasn't this decision even crazier? It could be said that it was the real craziness. The process of this drama was a classic, and it was wonderful from the beginning. The location of the mausoleum that Jun Moxie chose was the old site of the original Night Mansion. This place had been given to a minister by the emperor as a mansion, and it was not far from the palace. Jun Moxie did not spend much effort to buy this mansion and raze it to the ground. Jun Moxie's method was very simple and rough, and even a little overbearing. He just put 5 million silver notes in front of the official surnamed Gu, and then gave him two choices. First, take the money and find another place to live. Second, be raised and buried along with this mansion. Minister Gu, who had already left his post, was quite quick-witted. He didn't even bat an eyelid as he readily agreed and immediately started to move everything away. Speaking of which, the construction cost of this residence was at most 4 or 5 million taels of silver, and it was extremely difficult to cash in. Now, the other party had directly offered 10 million taels of silver, which was 10 million taels of silver in real money. He had made a huge profit. Besides, the things in the mansion could be moved away by himself, and he just had to buy another mansion. Why not? Besides, even the emperor had to give way to Jun Moxie now. He did not have 3 heads, so why should he fight with him? He was in the limelight, and in the future, he might be able to find a way out for his descendants. Such a favor was worth it no matter what. Therefore, Lord Gu was very happy. The relocation of such a large residence only took a total of less than 2 days. Just as official Gu moved away the last item and walked less than 10 meters out of the door, he suddenly heard a loud boom. Turning around, he was shocked to find that the row upon row of huge houses, a continuous stretch of hundreds of houses, had suddenly collapsed at the same time, turning into broken beams and broken walls. All that was left was a stretch of ruins. Cold sweat broke out all over Lord Gu's body. If he didn't move quickly, then in this ruin. Thinking of this, Lord Gu didn't even turn his head back as he hurriedly left, leaving behind a body of cold sweat. At night, Jun Moxie came to this place. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer division guarded the place impenetrably. Jun Moxie wore a white robe and stood in the middle of the ruins. The night was boundless, and it looked somewhat hazy. Jun Moxie stood in the middle of the ruins, his face exceptionally solemn. The corpses of Yi Guhan and Murong Xiu Xiu, the pair of infatuated lovers, were in a huge bronze coffin behind him. Jun Mo Xia slowly stretched out both of his hands. His hands suddenly glowed with an earthen yellow radiance. He waved his hands lightly and waved them out. Under the illumination of this mysterious earthen yellow radiance, the broken walls and broken tiles were quickly turned into dust. The messy ground actually became smooth and flat in an instant. It was so bright that one could see one's reflection in it. Jun Moxie clasped his hands together and separated them again. In front of him, a tomb several feet deep suddenly appeared. The bronze coffins of Yi Guhan and Murong Xiu Xiu mysteriously floated up from the ground and slowly fell to the bottom of the tomb without a sound. Jun Moxie waved his hands, and the tomb instantly closed again. This pair of lovers were finally buried together in the same tomb. Finally, their long-cherished wish was fulfilled. May your souls go to the netherworld and reunite in Fengdu. Holding your hand, we will never abandon each other for 3 lifetimes. Jun Moxie still stood motionless. However, there was a huge stone tablet in front of him. It was like a tall tree that was growing at an extremely fast speed. It rose straight up to a height of 100 feet, square and huge. At the top, there was a dragon and a phoenix facing each other from a distance. The atmosphere was heavy and dignified. Between the dragon and phoenix, there were 3 majestic characters that stood hollowed out, Tomb of Lovers. Jun Moxie's body slowly floated in the air. His fingertips glowed with an earthy yellow brilliance. He pondered for a moment and suddenly waved with force. On the stone tablet, fine stone chips flew out continuously. A few lines of flamboyant calligraphy instantly appeared on the smooth surface of the tablet. On the upper left side, I do not regret my deep love in this life. I am willing to wander alone. If fate does not end in the next life, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. In the middle, the tomb of Yi Guhan and Murong Xiu Xiu. On the lower right side, Jun Moxie felt the deep love of these two, so he specially set up this tablet. May these two, in the next life and the next, for all eternity, grow old together, and never be separated. In the sky, they can be lovebirds, on earth, they can be intertwined branches, there will always be an end to the sky and the earth, but this love will never end. This tomb is called the Tomb of Lovers, erected by Jun Moxie. If there are any offenders, 9 generations will be executed. Jun Moxie looked at the tall tombstone and said in a low voice, Yiguhan, Murong Xiu Xiu, I have fulfilled your wishes for you. No matter how bitter you were when you were alive, you are finally reunited after death. Since this tablet has my name on it, I will not let anyone disturb your peace. This is also the last thing I can do for you. Jun Moxie stood up and thought for a while. Then, he placed 2 huge stone lions in front of the tomb. Then, with Jun Moxie's footsteps, stone steps appeared one by one in a steady but abrupt manner. Jun Moxie's right hand flickered with a lush green light, and the entire graveyard was suddenly covered with pine and cypress trees. It was lush and verdant, and the entire area was covered with pine and cypress trees. The tombstones of Yiguhan and Murong Xiu Xiu were placed in the center. Jun Moxie looked back one last time and sighed. Then, he bowed, mounted his horse, and left. The Tomb of Lovers. Just as Jun Moxie expected, the sudden appearance of this magical Tomb of Lovers caused an uproar on the second day of its completion. First, it was still a towering mansion yesterday, but today, it had become a huge tomb with pine and cypress trees. This magical phenomenon naturally caused the people in the city to be inexplicably surprised. Secondly, it was because of the 2 names on the huge tombstone. Few people knew who Yiguhan was, but everyone knew who Murong Xiu Xiu was. Wasn't that the name of the current empress? Why was she buried here? Moreover, she was married to someone else. What the hell was going on? In the palace. The emperor kicked over the stool with one leg and then fiercely threw all the things on the table onto the ground. Following that, he kicked the table, sending it flying. His eyes were red with anger as he roared loudly, Men, flatten this tomb of affection for me. Flatten it no matter what. What qualifications does this bastard Yiguhan have? What qualifications does he have? Murong Xiu Xiu. Bitch. Bitch, bitch, bitch. Ah, I want both of you to not be able to rest in peace even in death. Meet each other. I will definitely grind your corpses into ashes. One will be buried at the bottom of the vast ocean, and the other will be scattered on the peak of a towering mountain. You will never be able to meet each other again. Groups of royal guards whipped their horses and galloped through the streets to tear down this tomb of lovers. The tomb that was like a thorn in the emperor's flesh. These small fries were not worthy of being personally attended to by Jun Dashao. Of course, the people in charge of attending to these guards were not low-level either. Because, the people who received them were from the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. Based on the current strength of these people, any one of them was basically at Tian Xian's level. With such a lineup, how could they be low-level? One side insisted on tearing down the tomb, while the other side followed orders to defend it. In the center of Tianxiang City, there was no need to say anything. The result was obvious. Even the weakest member of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer was at the peak of the Earth Xian realm. Furthermore, there were 300 of them gathered together to form a large-scale battle formation. How could these ordinary soldiers be a match for them? There were not many peak Earth Xian experts in the entire Tianxiang Empire, not to mention the even stronger Tian Xian experts. Those with such skills would have already gone to the Jianghu or established their own sections. Who would be so bored as to waste their time in the army? Therefore, in just a short period of time, the ground was already littered with broken limbs. This was also thanks to Jun Moxie's order not to kill anyone. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer were cautious and held back. Therefore, there were no casualties. Even so, In just one morning, nearly 10,000 people were injured or disabled. This was a rather terrifying number. The emperor was not discouraged despite losing the first battle. The millions of soldiers of the Tianxiang Empire could not even flatten a small tomb. Even if the Jun family does not listen to my orders, what about the other families? Are they going to rebel with the Jun family? I don't believe it. It can't be that the other families are like the Jun family, who have the backing of a peerless expert. Everyone in the family is like Shinxian, right? Then, he issued an edict for the Dugu family to send out their troops. However, old man Dugu Zongheng suddenly fell ill. It was said that he was already in a coma. It was simply incurable. He was only one more breath than a dead man. In such a situation, he naturally could not lead the troops. Moreover, it was not only old man Dugu Zongheng who fell ill. Even General Dugu Wudi fell ill. Although it was not to the point of incurable, he was vomiting and having diarrhea. He could not get out of bed. As for going into battle, it was even worse. Chapter 655. The women of the Dugu family were extremely busy. It was said that nearly half of the physicians in the capital had been invited to the Dugu family. They were served with good food and drinks, and their diagnoses were getting more and more serious. From an outsider's point of view, the Dugu family would definitely have funerals tomorrow, and not just one or two, but more than 10. As soon as the report of sick leave was submitted, His Majesty the Emperor was furious on the spot. He almost fainted on the spot due to a heart attack. Then, Grand Preceptor Li claimed to be ill, admitting that he was old and frail, and that it was difficult for him to take on such a heavy responsibility. It was said that Master Meng had caught tetanus last night, and really couldn't get up. In short, all the important ministers of the imperial court were bedridden this morning. According to the report, these people did not seem to be pretending, and they were really miserable. After the emperor was furious, he finally thought of one person, Murong Fengyun. This was his father-in-law. He was Murong Xiu's biological father. If he did not care, who would? Whether from an official's point of view, Murong Fengyun was the most suitable person to deal with this matter. But when Murong Fengyun received the news, his hands trembled, and he almost fell. Then he opened his eyes and shouted, Xiu is dead. When did this happen? Why didn't I know about this? Murong Fengyun immediately went to the palace to see the empress, and was told that the empress had gone out late at night 10 days ago and had not returned. Old Master Murong went directly to the emperor, full of bewilderment. In the end, he only received a series of hesitant and unclear explanations. The only thing that was clear was that the emperor wanted him to topple Murong Xiu and Yigu Han's graves first. Everything else could be discussed later. Jun family. Hearing the sounds of fighting coming from outside, Jun Wui shook his head and smiled bitterly. Mo Xia, you've crossed the line this time, aren't you a little too much? Jun Mo Xia, who was reading the classic of mountains and seas with great interest, flipped a page, and casually said, Is it out of line? Is it too much? I don't think so. This is a well-prepared deterrence. If there wasn't so much blood spilled, there would still be people who would go and destroy it. Make a scene, the bigger the better. It's just a few more people dying. Tian Guanlin had over 100,000 people lying there unjustly. How many people had died in Tianxiang City? Far from it. Grandpa Jun, who was half reclining on his armchair, sighed and did not say anything. At this moment, a guard suddenly reported, the Murong family's patriarch, Murong Fengyun, is here to see old Master Jun. The main character is finally here. Jun Moxie and Jun Wui said at the same time. Jun Zhantian, this old man wants an explanation from you. Murong Fengyun stormed in and said, Old man, I understand that you want to take revenge for your son, so I didn't make things difficult for you. But, your Jun family has been making a ruckus for 9 days now, and all the murderers have been put to death. So, you should have had enough by now, right? Even if it's not enough, you can continue messing around. Why do you have to ruin my daughter's reputation? After all, Xiuxiu is the queen of a country, the mother of the world. How can she be humiliated like this? Humiliation? Old man Murong, why do you say that? Jun Zhantian said calmly. Fine. I only ask you, my daughter. My daughter. Xiuxiu, is she dead? Is her body buried in the grave of passion? Murong Fengyun's eyes were red. Although he was a hero, he was still a father. His own daughter's fate was unknown, but someone had erected a tombstone. How could he not be angry? How could he not be sad? Yes. Jun Moxie interrupted calmly, Old Master Murong, your daughter was indeed killed outside the Jun residence 10 days ago. My third uncle and I saw it with our own eyes. She's really dead. Xiuxiu. Murong Fengyun's body trembled, and he suddenly roared, how did she die? Who? Who killed her? The old man's voice was hoarse, as if his throat was torn. The person who killed her was one of the people I killed with 1,000 cuts, Chu Feng said. Jun Mo Xia said slowly, you should know this person. I'm sure you are not unfamiliar with him. He is Mr. Wen Sangyu. Wen Sangyu. It's him. How could it be him? Murong Fengyun's eyes flashed, and his face turned pale. His tall and straight body could not stand steadily, and he slowly sat down. He did not notice that there was no chair behind him, and sat directly on the ground. Hearing this name, he could guess how Murong Xiuxiu died, and who was the mastermind behind it. This was a matter that was completely obvious. Impossible. How could it be him? Murong Fengyun raised his head ferociously, and roared hysterically, you lied to me. Is it impossible? Princess Raimo saw the assassination with her own eyes. At this moment, she is still in a coma, recuperating from her injuries in my residence. There were also more than 100 guards who protected the Murong clan lady that night. Even though many of them had died while they were trying to save her, nearly half of them were lucky enough to survive. They are still here. They are all soldiers of the Murong family. Can their testimonies be counted? If you still have any doubts, there are also Lord Divine Eagle, Solitary Eagle, and Fierce Gale Sword God, Feng Wanyun. Jun Mo Xia replied calmly, if Old Master Murong feels that it is necessary, you can ask them to come out and speak. Old Master Murong will believe their words, right? Murong Fengyun's face was dull, and he was about to go crazy. He could also hear that Jun Mo Xia had addressed his daughter as Miss Murong, and not Her Majesty the Empress. He could also guess the reason behind it. After asking everyone, he finally accepted the fact that his daughter was dead. In an instant, he seemed to have aged more than 10 years, and tears flowed down his cheeks. His son-in-law sent someone to kill his daughter. When this cruel reality was placed right in front of him, the old man immediately broke down. But, my daughter is the Empress. Why did she have to be buried with that lowly Yiguhan? Murong Fengyun suddenly shouted in grief and jumped up. Lowly? Master Murong, have you ever asked your own daughter about this? Did you ever ask her if she wanted to stay in the imperial palace and be the empress of the world? Or would she rather follow Yi Guhan to the ends of the world? The corners of Jun Mo Xia's mouth curled into a mocking smile. Do you know who your daughter likes? Master Murong, if you didn't mention this, I wouldn't have mentioned it either. But now that you mention it, it makes me look down on you. I look down on you from the bottom of my heart. Murong Fengyun sat down dejectedly. He suddenly remembered his docile daughter holding a knife to her own neck and the bright blood stain. Father, please help me. I'm willing to follow little Han. Even if I have to live in the wilderness, wander the world, I have no regrets. Please fulfill your daughter's wish. That crazy look in her eyes, that stubborn love, was still fresh in his mind, but his daughter was no longer in this world. Daughter. Our Murong family is at the end of our rope. Fortunately, His Majesty has taken a liking to you. This is the only chance for the thousands of people in our family to make a comeback. Your father is old, and I don't have the heart to support the entire family. Your elder brothers are in their prime, and your younger brothers are still young. Do you really have the heart to follow Yi Gu Han and let the entire family be destroyed? Do you really want your family to be beheaded? Help me, help your brothers, and help the entire Murong family. That was what he had told his daughter in the past. His daughter did not know that the Murong family was already deeply rooted at that time. There was no such thing as a crisis. But she, who was naive, chose to believe in her father. In the end, she let go of the knife in her hand. Even if I know that you're lying to me, I can't take this risk. I can't bear to part with this family. I've accepted my fate. These were his daughter's words at that time. To this day, he could still remember how his daughter cried for several months after that incident. That pitiful cry seemed to have pierced into his heart when he thought about it now. Before she got married, her face was filled with despair, and her dispirited expression was like dead ashes. The only dowry she brought with her was that handkerchief. It was him who broke up his daughter's beautiful marriage with one hand and pushed his daughter into that cold palace with the other. He thought that he had found the best home for his daughter because of this, but in the end, it led to the tragedy of her life. Murong Fengyun sat on the ground and suddenly burst into tears. In front of his eyes, amidst the glistening tears, it seemed like his daughter was still wailing, crying her heart out as she hugged her leg. "Daddy, please let me and little Han be together, please let me and little Han be together." He remembered that it was also winter at that time. He was wearing thick clothes, but his daughter's tears had soaked his pants and made him feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. He remembered that his daughter had not smiled in the past few years. She would often stare blankly at a certain place. She would occasionally come home, but she would come and go in a hurry. It was as if there was only endless pressure in the house. It was Miss Murong Xiu's last wish to be buried together with Yi Guhan. "Do you want to destroy her last wish as well?" June Moxie Lengleng's voice came. "The Murong family has used her for a lifetime. She had been used in exchange for countless riches and glory, in exchange for everything that others could never obtain in a lifetime. Now that she's dead, Master Murong, don't tell me that you still want her to marry the person who killed her with his own hands." Murong Fengyun raised his head in shock. In his tears, he seemed to see his daughter in a red wedding dress shouting, "Father, please let me go. Father, please let me go." He closed his eyes and 2 streams of tears rolled down his cheeks. Master Murong absent-mindedly left the June residence, completely at a loss. He had no idea where he was going. Suddenly, he heard shouts in front of him. He walked over and found that he had inadvertently arrived at the grave of the lovers. This is the resting place of my daughter." He urged his horse forward with a blank look in his eyes. When the soldiers saw Murong Fengyun, they all made way for him. The Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer soldiers guarding the grave were about to stop him when a voice said, "Let him pass." Chapter 656. Murong Fengyun arrived in front of the tombstone and got off his horse, but he staggered. Looking at the towering tombstone, he saw the words on it through his blurry eyes. "I don't regret my deep love in this life, I'm willing to wander alone. If fate does not end in my next life, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you." Xiu, my dear daughter, are you really going to die?" Murong Fengyun stood there, motionless. His white beard fluttered in the cold wind, and his tears fell to the ground. He just stood there, his right hand gently stroking the tombstone, as if he was comforting his young daughter. In front of the tomb, the fighting stopped, and all eyes were on him. Suddenly, Murong Fengyun roared, "Xiu! If you die like this, how do you expect me to live?" His voice was filled with pain and intense pity, as if his own daughter was standing in front of him again. She was still the same as she was 18 years ago, still looking at him with such a pitiful expression. He sighed and suddenly reached out his hand. Dark blue Tian Xian Qi came out, and as his hand fell, stone chips flew. On the side, there was another line of small words. My beloved daughter, Murong Xiao Xiao, rests here forever. Father, Murong Fengyun, stands. Then, he stared blankly for a long time, and finally sobbed. He covered his withered face with both hands, jumped on his horse, and left. He lay on the horse's back, and never looked back again. This stubborn old man did it in the end. Even though he did not recognize Yi Guhan as his son-in-law, he still broke off his daughter's engagement. He did not recognize his daughter's empress position anymore. He only erected a tombstone for his daughter. The cold wind blew, and the pines rustled like the sea. It seemed like Murong Xiao Xiao was saying her final farewell to her father. After Murong Fengyun returned home, he immediately issued an order. All officials in the Murong family were to resign immediately. From now on, the Murong family would have nothing to do with the world's disputes and power struggles. Anyone who disobeyed would be beaten 80 times and expelled from the family. However, Murong Fengyun's addition meant that Murong Fengyun and the Murong clan had acknowledged this grave. It acknowledged the existence of this tombstone. He had accepted this seemingly absurd fact. The remaining imperial guards quietly withdrew. Because if they didn't leave now, they would have to face death and slaughter. June Moxie announced that from this moment on, there would be no mercy. From then on, the Grave of Passion became a major attraction of Tianxiang City. From this moment on, the huge tombstone would stand tall for 10,000 years. The evil monarch had personally established it. Even after 10,000 years, no one would dare to touch it. This also became a great miracle left by the evil monarch in the human world thousands of years later. Because the whole graveyard and the tombstone were completed in an instant by evil Prince June Moxie alone. Tens of thousands of years later, the continent produced many experts, but no one was able to achieve such a legendary feat. Ordinary people came here to pay homage, but the experts came here and all of them were amazed, guessing how the evil monarch had done all of this. This had already surpassed what people could do, or even the greatest scope of guesses. Not long after the battle, someone set up another tombstone next to it, which detailed the life course of Yi Guhan and Murong Xiao Xiao, as well as their earth-shattering love. The Grave of Passion made countless lovers shed tears in front of this tombstone. Some young men and women in the future would come here every time it was time to talk about marriage. They prayed that this pair of lovers could fulfill their marriage, and hoped that their feelings could be like theirs, unchanging in life and death, never changing. Tianxiang City was in turmoil, and the entire Xian continent was also in turmoil. In the far north, in the Blizzard Silver City, where another super family was located. His heart was filled with anxiety. Xiao Xingyun looked at the snowflakes of information in front of him and sighed helplessly. He regretted that he didn't kill them all those years ago, causing him to attract such a disaster today. How could they resist the power of the June family? The mysterious expert had caused a total of 90 experts from the 3 Holy Lands to be defeated in one fell swoop. The number 1 king of Tian Fa, Venerable Mei, turned out to be that little bastard June Moxie's woman. All these ridiculous things had happened to June Mo Xia, and no one dared to believe it, but they had no choice but to believe it. And the letters he wrote to the 3 Holy Lands asking for help had not received any reply. As for the people he sent, there was no news either. Xiao Xingyun hadn't been able to eat or sleep well these past few days. Don't tell me that my Xiao family is so close to unifying the Silver Blizzard City. Is it going to be destroyed? Han Zhanmeng, the lord of the Blizzard Silver City, had been asking about the whereabouts of the group of people who had gone out. After all, it was too outrageous that they did not return to the Blizzard Silver City for the new year, especially when the little princess, Han Yanmeng, was among them. Although there were messages from the fake third elder and the others, Han Zhanmeng still felt that something was wrong. What could be more important than returning to the mountain for the new year? Moreover, little Meng had been gone for so long. How could she not miss her parents when she was so attached to them? How could she stay outside for so long? It was the new year. Even her father, who had been in seclusion for a long time, had come out. But he kept saying that he was busy and could not come back, and that he would only be back in spring. Could it be that something went wrong somewhere? Also, the Jun family said that they were coming to take revenge on the Shao family. Was this true? In short, during this period of time, the atmosphere in the Silver City was not right. So during this period of time, Han Zhanmeng had been visiting the intelligence department a lot more often, which made the Shao family even more fearful. They were afraid that Han Zhanmeng would discover something, and that would be terrible. Now was not the time when they wanted to exterminate the entire Han family. Facing a strong enemy like the Jun family and Jun Moxia, it was always good to have a little more help, not to mention a strong ally like the Han family. Today, Han Zhanmeng came again. Because he suddenly had doubts about the intelligence office of the Shao family. Even if he was really busy, his youngest daughter should have written a letter back. Ever since she left, little Meng had only sent a letter twice, and since then, there was no news from her. No matter how busy she was, she should have time to write a letter, right? Besides, no matter how busy she was, could she be busy? Everything was strange. Great Elder, you are here too. Is there any news recently? Han Zhanmeng's handsome face was expressionless as he greeted him lightly. My lord. Shao Xingyun straightened his back. Although he was over 100 years old, he was still tall and straight. His eyebrows were sharp, and his face was devoid of wrinkles. If it were not for his white hair, others would have thought that he was a handsome man in his 30s or 40s. The recent news is not good for our Blizzard Silver City. Shao Xingyun sighed. The Jun family is coming aggressively. It seems that they are confident. Our Silver City is on the brink of crisis. Oh, it's still about the Jun family? Han Zhanmeng frowned, feeling a little impatient. You know what I'm asking about, but you're using the Jun family to brush me off. Besides, the Jun family is looking for revenge against the Shao family. What does it have to do with the Blizzard Silver City? That's right, the Jun family has the support of the Beast Kings of Tian Fa this time. Shao Xingyun looked up to the sky and sighed. My lord, it seems that we are going to face a tough battle this time. We must be fully prepared. Han Zhanmeng interrupted him and asked, has there been any news from the third elder in the past 2 days? Shao Xingyun smiled and said, My lord, you came at the right time. The third elder's letter just arrived. Everyone has been working hard, especially the little princess. She complained in the letter that she needs to come back soon. I estimate that she will be back in 10 or 20 days at most. Let me see it. Han Zhanmeng was excited. Han Zhanmeng looked at the letter, which had almost 1,000 words and took 7 or 8 pages. He flipped through the pages one by one until he saw his daughter's message. It was not written by her, but by someone else. She said that the little princess was very naughty and homesick, and that she missed her parents. She even cried one night. The subordinates were in fear and trepidation, and were trying their best to resolve this matter as soon as possible and return to the Blizzard Silver City. Han Zhanmeng's doubts did not disappear after he finished reading. Instead, they increased. Something was not right. If she could write 1,000 words and 7 or 8 pages, why couldn't Meng or insert a page and write it herself? Why did she have to let someone else write for her? She kept saying that she missed the Blizzard Silver City and wanted to return, but she delayed it for several months. The elders of the Blizzard Silver City had always been swift and decisive in their work. When had they ever delayed things like this? According to the letter, there were no casualties among the subordinates of the Blizzard Silver City. That was even more wrong. Since it could cause such a big problem, how could there be no casualties? Wasn't it too smooth? If it was so smooth, why didn't they deal with it for a long time and didn't return? Han Zhanmeng was silent for a long time after he finished reading the letter. However, he gradually tightened his grip on the letter until his knuckles turned white. The ominous premonition that had been lingering in his heart for a long time suddenly became stronger and stronger. He stood quietly for a long time before he slowly said, Great Elder, What do you think of this news? His back was facing Xiao Xingyun when he said this. His tone was flat, and even carried a hint of a smile. It was as if he was chatting peacefully and peacefully. I also feel that something is not right. However, as long as there are no casualties, it's a good thing. It's possible that they only report the good news and not the bad news. Xiao Xingyun frowned and thought deeply. Xiao Xingyun frowned as he pondered deeply. He then said, however, many people have gone out this time. Their strength is also considerable. But, they haven't returned even after such a long time. It seems that the difficulties they've encountered aren't as simple as they've been described in the letter. This is inevitable. This old man is also somewhat suspicious. Or perhaps they are trapped by worldly forces, and are afraid of losing face. If you put it this way, it makes some sense. But, how could Meng not have sent back any news? What is the reason for this? Han Zhanmeng's doubts were slightly reduced when he heard this. Could it be like this? Xiao Xingyun suddenly slapped his thigh as if he had suddenly realized something. Then, he stammered and found it difficult to speak. Like this? What? What did you think of? Han Zhanmeng turned around and looked at Xiao Xingyun sternly with his sharp eyes. This old man is just guessing. After all, there is no news from the little princess, and it's the end of the year. This is really abnormal. Xiao Xingyun looked embarrassed. What did you think of? Tell me quickly. Han Zhanmeng was a little annoyed and waved his sleeves heavily. Chapter 657. Xiao Xingyun was a sly old fox. How could he not see that Han Zhanmeng was suspicious of the Xiao family? He had been thinking about how to solve this problem for the past few days, but he had not come up with a good idea. Now that he was forced by Han Zhanmeng, he had a sudden inspiration and came up with such a reason. It had to be said that this reason was quite reliable. After all, there was a precedent. Han Zhanmeng was stunned and frowned. After a long time, he said, if that's the case, Great Elder, please pay more attention to the news. If there are any abnormalities, please report to me immediately. With that, he walked out with a heavy heart. In his heart, he was thinking, do both of my daughters have to walk this path? Looking up at the misty snow mountain Sword Peak, Han Zhanmeng's heart was in turmoil. His eldest daughter, Yan Yao, was still in seclusion up there. It was a punishment, but it was also her own choice. It had been nearly 10 years now. Han Zhanmeng let out a long sigh, and his eyes flashed with pain. Suddenly, he flew towards the Sword Peak. However, he didn't notice that Xiao Xingyun's sinister eyes had quietly flashed with a trace of a relieved smile. I've finally managed to deal with it for the time being. Sword Peak. This was the key to the oath that the Dongfang family was forced to make. The Sword Peak collapsed. All the Xian beasts came out of Tian Fa. This was the highest peak of the snow mountain. The whole mountain was shaped like a huge sword, piercing straight into the clouds. The lower part of the mountain was round, and the upper part gradually shrank. On both sides of the mountain, there were two mountain ridges protruding, like the two handguards of the sword. Above it was a tall and straight mountain, piercing into the depths of the sky, straight into the clouds. This towering mountain at the top of the snow mountain was majestic and steep, and covered a radius of dozens of miles. When it came to collapsing the Sword Peak and the snow mountain, this was an almost impossible task. How could such a majestic mountain collapse just like that? Han Zhanmeng could not help but think of that battle and that oath. He could not help but feel sad for the Dongfang family, from the bottom of his heart. Such an outstanding assassin family was sealed in this remote and desolate place for all eternity by a vow. Furthermore, he had no hope of making a comeback. How could he not be sad? According to altitude sickness, the higher one went, the more difficult it would be to breathe. This was because the higher the altitude, the thinner the air would be. This was especially true in this place. If an ordinary person came here, they would be in danger of suffocating at any time. But for these experts who were familiar with the climate of the plateau, it was not a problem at all. On the contrary, the higher one was, the denser the spiritual chi of heaven and earth would be. This was greatly beneficial to the cultivation of Xian techniques. Snowflakes fluttered in the air. This was the case at the top of the snow-capped peak. It snowed all year round. This also caused some strange phenomena. For example, some of the mountains were hundreds of feet tall, but they were not actually that tall. Most of them were formed by the accumulation of ice and snow over the years. If there was high temperature, it was very likely that the ice and snow would turn into a gurgling stream in a few days. However, in such a snowy world, how could there be high temperature? Han Yanyao's seclusion cave was already very close to the top of the mountain. The temperature there was even colder, almost double the temperature at the bottom of the snow-capped peak. But if one were to practice here, it would be more efficient. For generations, there were many outstanding disciples of the Silver City who had secluded themselves here. But the longest period of seclusion was no more than 3 years. Most of them could only last for 3 to 5 months. This was because humans were social animals. If they were to live alone, 1 or 2 days might not be a big deal. But if they were to be separated from the group for a long period of time, no one would be able to stand it. That loneliness and boredom could drive people crazy. Especially in the last few hundred years, this place had gradually become a place where they were punished to face the wall. But Han Yanyao had already been in seclusion here for over 10 years. Even Han Zhanmeng, as her father, could not imagine how his daughter had endured these 10 years. The madam and the great elder had tried countless times to get her to come down, but she had always refused. She refused to give a reason. Han Zhanmeng sighed softly. Looking at the cold, dark cave, he finally stepped in. Inside the cave, not only was it not warmer than outside the cave, it seemed to be even colder. As far as the eyes could see, it was an illusion of ice and snow. There were ice pillars and walls that were as smooth as jade everywhere. There were no mirrors, no combs, no tassel-embroidered tent, and no soft bedding. As far as the eyes could see, there was nothing that could be called enjoyment. Even the basic daily necessities were hard to find. Was this really a girl's residence? Inside the cave, on the only ice jade platform in the center, a woman in white with black hair trailing over her shoulders sat cross-legged. Her eyes were slightly closed, and her hands were quietly placed in front of her abdomen, as if she was silently practicing. There was no sadness or joy on her tranquil face, only tranquility. It was as if her whole body had melted into the ice cave, almost like she was not a living person. Han Zhanmeng felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. Was this still the daughter who hugged his leg and begged him to tell her stories? Was this still the same carefree daughter who ran around with a face full of smiles? How could she become like this now? Han Zhanmeng's heart was filled with mixed feelings, and he finally called out softly. On the jade platform, Han Yanyao suddenly heard the voice and opened her eyes slightly. Unexpectedly, her father appeared in front of her. There was a rare trace of warmth in her calm eyes, but there was still no change in her expression. "Father, it's you." Living alone on the icy peak all year round and suffering in her heart caused her to be unable to smile. She didn't even speak much. At this moment, she had become like the snow peak that had existed for thousands of years. She refused to melt. It was rare to melt. Perhaps, in this world, except for that person, there was no one else who could make her smile. Facing his eldest daughter, Han Zhanmeng felt speechless for a moment. The alienation and unfamiliarity that his daughter exuded made his heart ache for a moment, and he was speechless. After a long time, Han Yanyao finally took the initiative to ask, "Father, why are you here today?" Several thoughts went through Han Zhanmeng's mind, but he suppressed them and changed the topic. There is one thing that I still don't understand. It has been a whole 10 years, and until today, my doubts have not been solved. Today, I came up to have a good talk with you. Han Yanyao raised her eyebrows slightly in surprise. Please enlighten me, father. When you went down the mountain, you saw the third son of the Jun family, Jun Wui, and fell in love at first sight. Afterwards, I went down the mountain to see Jun Wui, and to see him. In all fairness, he is indeed a good man, and can be regarded as an outstanding talent. However, in my opinion, no matter in which aspect, he is not as good as Xiao Han. I still don't understand why you made such a decision. Could it be that Jun Wui is truly extraordinary? Could it be that I, your father, was mistaken? Han Zhanmeng said that this question had been bothering him for a whole 10 years, and it was not wrong. But the biggest reason he brought it up today was because of the Great Elder's speculation. If the Great Elder's speculation was true, would both his daughters have the same fate? Hearing the words, Jun Wui, Han Yanyao's eyes flashed, and a hint of softness appeared in them. Even the cold expression on her face seemed to melt a little, but it quickly disappeared. She said lightly, Father, is this why you don't understand? I thought you already knew about it. What do you mean? Han Zhanmeng frowned. In the past, Jun Wui was not as handsome as Xiao Han, nor was he as considerate as Xiao Han, who deliberately flattered his daughter. In terms of xian cultivation, he was far behind Xiao Han. In terms of family background, one was a secular official, while the other was from a super family. The difference was like heaven and earth, and there was no room for comparison. I believe that Jun Wui is nothing in comparison to Xiao Han in most people's eyes. He doesn't have any redeeming qualities, Han Yanyao said indifferently. If you understand this, then why did you? Han Zhanmeng did not expect to hear such words from his daughter. He thought that she would praise Jun Wui greatly, and that he would surpass Xiao Han in every aspect. Unexpectedly, what came out of his daughter's mouth was very different from what he had imagined. Yes, in terms of external conditions, Jun Wui is indeed not as good as Xiao Han. This is also why I said that in the eyes of most people, Xiao Han is better than Jun Wui. But unintentionally, he made me feel that this is a person, and a man at that. Han Yanyao's cold eyes shone with a blazing flame. At that time, his xian cultivation was not high, but he often helped people, and did not seek fame or fortune. He was upright, and had an awe-inspiring character. Although he was not good-looking, his heart was as broad as the sea, and he had the spirit of a man. His family may be ordinary in our eyes, but in Tianxiang, it could be considered one of the best. But he did not have the slightest bit of extravagance, nor did he use his power to bully others. He shed his blood for his country and ideals, and at a young age, he was already a blood general, serving the country and its people, and had an illustrious reputation. All of these were his strengths. Based on what his father knew, could Xiao Han compare to him? If Xiao Han was not born in the Xiao family, with his aptitude and breadth of mind, what level could he have reached? Han Yanyao's face showed a trace of gentle reminiscence. Let's put aside these strengths and weaknesses for now. What I remember most is the first time we met in the magnificent jewel hall. His eyes were very clear and free. As she spoke, she slowly raised her head and said, Father, although your daughter's appearance is not rare, I am confident that it is enough to cause the downfall of a city. In this world, I do not belittle myself, but the number of women who can stand shoulder to shoulder with me can be counted with one's fingers. I believe you will not deny this, right? Han Zhanmeng nodded silently. Han Yanyao was an outstanding beauty, and could be said to be the most beautiful woman in the Silver Blizzard City. How could he not know this? Even to this day, the title of the most beautiful woman in the city had never changed hands. He had long been used to seeing some of his disciples suddenly stare at his daughter, so how could he not know his daughter's beauty? But when Jun Wui saw me, although his eyes were stunned for a moment, he returned to normal in a very short time. Han Yanyao's face showed a trace of a shy smile. Then when he left, he was even more resolute, without any worries. I remember that I had a medicinal herb in my hands that he urgently needed, and he practically snatched it, shoved a roll of silver notes into my hands, and left in a hurry. At that time, I was so proud and arrogant, so I followed him. At that time, his xian cultivation was not even at the gold xian level, so he naturally did not notice me. I originally wanted to play a trick on him, but I unexpectedly found out that the reason he left in such a hurry was to treat the poison of an injured deputy general, and the medicinal herb was the one he bought from me. The deputy general was plotted against and poisoned deeply. Although the medicine was effective, he was already deeply poisoned and the medicine could no longer take effect. After taking the medicine, he was barely able to speak a few words before the poison attacked his heart and he died. At that time, Jun Wui was lying on his body, crying, and sucking on the injured part of his body in vain, trying to save him, but in the end, he was powerless. Father, that was the first time I saw a man cry, and I suddenly understood what it meant to be a brother. Han Yan Yao's face was full of sorrow. I quietly left, and when I returned, I often saw the image of him holding the corpse and crying bitterly. For the sake of a brother who was almost hopeless, and who was only his subordinate, he gave up the opportunity to be alone with me, and hurriedly returned, without the slightest bit of reluctance. After a few days, we met again, and he was sending his elder brother off to battle, so, after meeting him again and again, I felt that although Jun Wui was not a peerless genius, nor was he a descendant of a super-aristocratic family, he was a real man. In front of me, he never concealed himself, he was very honest, and very frank. Han Yanyao quietly said, "What other people think, what they say, I don't care, but in my eyes, Xiao Han is a very fake person." The way Xiao Han looked at me was very intoxicated, but also full of pride. It was as if he was looking at something that belonged to him, as if I was already in his palm, but the way Jun Wui looked at me, was only love and respect. So, I like Jun Wui, and hate Xiao Han. Han Zhanmeng sighed deeply. Perhaps there is another reason. Xiao Han is the future son-in-law you all chose, and you never asked for my permission. As for Jun Wui, he is the man I like, and I feel that I can rely on him for life. Han Yanyao's voice became more and more calm, but to Han Zhanmeng, it sounded like a daughter shouting loudly. Maybe it was because of the ancestral teachings, or because of the friendship between the two families at that time, the marriage was decided. But after we grew up, did you all feel that Xiao Han is very narrow-minded? Do you know how many disciples have had their hands and feet broken by him just because they said a few words to me? Some of them were even his uncles and brothers. Do you know that Xiao Han is an extremely dissolute person? When he was training in Jianghu, he started to flirt with women the moment he stepped into the secular world. He is even more unscrupulous in his actions. Whenever he does not comply with his wishes, he will use forceful means, and once the other party is stronger, he will use the name Han Cheng, and sure enough, it is always successful. With such a character, can you just close your eyes and let your daughter marry him? Maybe you can pretend that you don't know, but I can't. Of course I understand that you want to marry him, but have you ever thought about whether I would be happy if I really married Xiao Han? Xiao Han's behavior has never been a secret, do you really not know? But father, you still did not change your mind. At that time, did you know, father, I was actually in despair. I was completely in despair. Han Yanyao's eyes slowly filled with tears. Han Zhanmeng listened in a daze, and suddenly his heart was full of regret. Even if he did not know all this, he had at least heard about it. But he had never taken it to heart. He had only thought that after marriage, things would naturally get better. Under the care of the elders of the two families, how bad could things be? Only now did he know that he had made a huge mistake. Han Yanyao said angrily, "Until I met Jun Wui. Father, I believe that any girl would choose Jun Wui over Xiao Han for the sake of her lifelong happiness, right? He is just a beast in human skin." After the trip to Tianxiang, the Xiao family became even more domineering. From the beginning to the end, Jun Wui did not know my identity, nor did he have the slightest intention of clinging to the Silver Blizzard City. But the Shao family directly sent people to warn them. Was that a warning? That was a naked humiliation. They even forced me to return to the mountain. After that, they used all kinds of methods to attack the Jun family. What crime did Jun Wuhui commit? The god of war of a generation, an unparalleled hero, had died with injustice because of them. Jun Wu Meng was a hero, an upright man, but because of us, he died tragically in Tianguan Lin. What's more, Jun Wu Hui's 2 sons also died because of this, and they were only teenagers. Jun Wu Yi had also been beaten into a cripple. The reason why he hadn't died was probably because of Shao Han's words. He wanted to make him beg for death, but he couldn't. If it was not for me, I would have died on the spot, and the Shao family even planned to annihilate the Jun family. Didn't you know all this? But did you say anything? Daddy, your daughter's life has been ruined just like that. Han Yanyao's eyes were empty as she looked at her father. It was because of me that Jun Wu Hui and Jun Wu Meng died. Jun Mo Yu and Jun Mo Cho also died when they were young. All of this is because of me. Father, if you were Jun Wui, would you want such a disaster? No matter how much you like this woman, your family all died because of her. Would you still accept her? Father, put yourself in her shoes. I have a conscience. People often say, what people do, the heavens watch, karma, karma, karma. But is there real justice? In this world where the fist is the strongest, justice is not in the hearts of the people. Right and wrong are determined by strength. Even if there is someone who has the strength to uphold justice, but due to various reasons, he is not willing to stand up for this tragedy. How many supremes and superior supremes there are in this world, as long as they stand up and say something, they can avoid this tragedy. But they did not. What can they do? What can they do? Han Zhanmeng frowned in pain, looking at his daughter's sorrowful story, but he could not say a word. He felt as if something was stuck in his throat. How could he not know that when his daughter said, someone who has the strength to uphold justice, but due to various reasons, he is not willing to stand up for it, she was talking about him. Facing his daughter who had suffered for 10 years, what could he say? Han Yanyao stood up slowly, her eyes filled with sadness as she looked at the snowflakes floating in the cave, and said slowly, this cave is very cold, so cold that even I can't stand it. But I don't want to go down, I would rather stay here until I die. I don't want to go down and see those familiar faces, because it makes me sick. It makes me hate, it makes me want to kill them all. They are not worthy of being human. Han Yanyao said quietly, on the first day I came here, I carved the names of big brother Jun Wu Hui and second brother Jun Wu Meng on the ice wall, and set up their divine positions. Later, I found out that my 2 nephews also died because of this. I stayed here and worshipped them. There is no incense or paper money here, only me, a sinful woman, kowtowing 3 times a day. Other than that, I can do nothing else. I can only face them every night and sincerely say sorry to them, say sorry. I know it is meaningless, but I will still do it, accompany them like this, because I have let them down, and I will never be able to atone for it in this life. Their deaths are my responsibility. Han Yanyao's face was frighteningly calm, and I am Jun Wuyi's woman. I am a member of the Jun family. Father, we don't have an official marriage. We don't even have the incense and candles. We don't even have the words of a matchmaker. But, I've already decided that I'm a member of the Jun family. If I were to die here one day, I hope that Father can fulfill my wish and bring my remains back to the Jun family for a proper burial. This may be the last request of a daughter to a father in this life. Han Zhanmeng slowly stood up and sighed to the sky. He had always thought that he would see his long-lost daughter again this time. He must have had a lot to say, but now he found himself speechless. He couldn't say anything at all. That's right, the heavens are watching. Those who have the power to uphold justice, for various reasons, are not willing to stand up. But what? What? He himself, daughter, you don't have to be so pessimistic. Maybe Jun Wu-yi will come to the Silver Blizzard City one day to pick you up when he is successful in his cultivation. As long as Jun Wu-yi has such strength, I will definitely help you too. Han Zhanmeng took a deep breath and made a promise, even if I have to fall out with the Xiao family, I will make sure that your wish is fulfilled this time. Father, if you had said this 10 years ago, perhaps all the tragedies could have been avoided. But now, it is too late. The tragedy has been cast, and the dead cannot be brought back to life. Even if he doesn't. I believe that he will come to the Silver Blizzard City, but not to pick me up. It is for revenge. The blood feud between the Jun family and the Silver Blizzard City is irreconcilable. I know his temper very well. The blood feud between the two brothers of the Jun family is a sore point for him, and it is also a sore point for me. This kind of sore point cannot be eliminated. Father, that's a brother made of flesh and blood. Our Han family and the Xiao family are only brothers of different surnames, and we have been protecting each other for thousands of years. Not to mention that we are brothers of the same mother. Han Yenyao smiled sadly and said, Father, when Jun Wuyi climbs the snowy mountain, my life will end on the day he arrives. I will personally go to the underworld to apologize to big brother Jun, second brother Jun, and my two nephews. No. I will not allow it. Han Zhanmeng's body trembled with fear, and he shouted sternly, You cannot be so reckless. If you do this, how will your mother and I face it? Father and mother's shock at my passing? I am sure they will be very sad. However, Jun Wuyi had to face the torment of having his two brothers and nephews die for him every single day and every single night of the past few years. How will he face it? Father, Xiao Han said that he would make Jun Wuyi suffer a fate worse than death, and he has done it. I believe that Jun Wuyi will suffer a fate worse than death for the past 10 years. Much worse. Han Yenyao laughed coldly, since he has committed a sin, he will have to pay the price. Apart from using human lives to pay this price, there was nothing else that could be used to pay this price. I only hope that the Han family of the Silver Blizzard City won't stand on the side of the Xiao family when that day comes. That would only add to our mistakes. Han Zhanmeng looked up to the sky and sighed, and he said in a low voice, Yao, you don't have to wait too long. The Jun family has already released the news that they will attack the Silver City on the 2nd of February this year. This news is already known to the whole world. On the 2nd of February, they will destroy the Silver City with one sword. This is the declaration of war from the Jun family. Ah! Han Yenyao suddenly jumped up and looked at her father with wild joy. Her voice trembled as she said, Daddy, is this real? You are not kidding me, are you? Of course it's true. Do you think I'm joking when I say that foreign enemies are attacking the Silver City? Han Zhanmeng nodded speechlessly. Looking at his daughter's happy face, he suddenly felt powerless. His own daughter was so happy that the enemy was going to attack them. The Jun family had said that they were going to attack the whole Silver City, and not just the Xiao family. Then, how strong is the Jun family now? If they don't have full confidence, won't they be in danger? Han Yenyao asked worriedly. The strength of the Jun family? They are stronger than the Silver City. Han Zhanmeng smiled bitterly, you can rest assured. That's great. Don't worry, Father, Wu Yi is not someone who kills indiscriminately. Attacking the Silver City is just to take revenge on the Xiao family. He will never implicate the innocent. I trust him on this. Han Yenyao's eyes were full of deep hatred. When the time comes, I want everyone in the Xiao family, starting from Xiao Han, to die without a whole corpse. Not even the chickens and dogs will be spared. I hope so, but the Xiao family. Han Zhanmeng looked troubled, and it was difficult for him to say it out loud. The Xiao family. What happened to them? The Xiao family has been very strange lately. Han Zhanmeng sighed. At the top of the Sword Peak, facing only his daughter, he finally voiced out his suspicions. Something is very strange. What do you mean? Han Yanyao frowned and looked at her father. It is very strange. In early autumn, the third elder and the others signed a contract with the 7 swords of the Silver City and went down the mountain with your sister. They still haven't come back. Han Zhanmeng sighed. The information that was sent to me was very strange. I had already felt that something was wrong. But none of the people I sent to gather information came back. And, during this time, the Shao family has been paying more attention to the intelligence system of the Silver City. Almost none of the information was sent to me. So I feel very depressed, and the sense of crisis is very strong. It seemed like something bad was about to happen. This premonition is very strong. The Shao family, for so many years, you have spoiled the Shao family. This is nothing new. Han Yanyao said calmly, internal strife is destined to be unavoidable. No matter how deep their friendship was in the past, it couldn't resist the arrogance of being spoiled generation after generation, which led to the wild ambition of wolves. This is not something to be alarmed about. What I am most worried about now is that Meng went out with them. Will she? Han Yanyao's eyes were full of anxiety. The great elder speculated that Meng is very likely to be like you. Han Zhanmeng shook his head, but I feel that there is something fishy about it. Xiao Han and Xiao Fengwu are also in the team, but they didn't come back. Even if they are like me, there is nothing strange about it. Because the whole Shao family is just a bunch of trash. No wonder I didn't see that bastard Xiao Han during this time. So they went out. Han Yanyao paused and said seriously, Father, you have to be careful of the Shao family's tricks. You can't be careless. Also, in this war, we can't let the Shao family be dragged into it. Since he said that he is going to take revenge, the Shao family's fate can be predicted. If the Han family gets involved, the consequences will be unimaginable. Han Zhanmeng sighed and avoided the question. Have you decided to stay here? The Jun family's people will come in 20 days at most. Don't you want to go down? Go down. Han Yanyao smiled sadly, but did not say another word. Her eyes stared blankly at the snowstorm outside the cave. Then, she quietly turned around and walked to an ice wall, standing there for a long time. Han Zhanmeng walked closer and saw a few lines of words engraved on the ice wall, Late Brother Jun Hui's Memorial Tablet. Late Brother Jun Hui Wu Meng's Memorial Tablet. Nephew Mou and Nephew Mo Chao's Memorial Tablets. 4 memorial tablets. The inscription was, Unfilial sister-in-law Han Yanyao stands in tears. Han Zhanmeng suddenly understood his daughter, and seemed to have touched the misery in his daughter's heart. These 4 names were like 4 mountains that had heavily pressed down on his daughter's body. They carried an ancient and desolate feeling, and had separated his daughter and Jun Wu-yi from each other. Even if Blizzard's Silver City was destroyed and the Shao family was destroyed, this mountain in her heart could not be removed. Han Yanyao's dream of a lifetime had been shattered the moment the Shao family had dealt with Jun Wu-hui. There was no more hope for her to realize her dream. She was still supporting herself to live, just waiting for revenge. Just waiting for the right time to atone for her sins. At that time, she would use her own life to atone for her sins, to express her guilt. Was this the retribution of those who had the power to uphold justice, but for various reasons, refused to stand up for her? Han Zhanmeng got up sadly and floated down the sword peak, full of worries. Behind him, amidst the clouds and mist, a graceful white-clothed figure, her black hair fluttering in the wind and snow. She was currently gazing into the distance. On the face of this peerless heavenly fragrance, clear and cold tears slowly slid down. When they fell to the ground, they had already frozen into beads of ice. She stood there quietly, as if she had been standing at the peak of the sword peak since ancient times. Chapter 658. Han Zhanmeng went straight through the main hall of the Silver Blizzard City, and then quietly left through a secret passage, arriving at a secret place halfway up the mountain. This place was still within the secret passage, and only this secret passage could lead to this place. Although this place was located in the middle of the mountain, the concentration of heaven and earth's spiritual qi here was far purer than any other place on the snow mountain. Even the peak of the Sword Peak where Han Yenyao was located was far inferior. The stone room was very spacious, with a circumference of about 100 feet. It was like an underground hall. There were many stalactites hanging in the air, forming a variety of strange shapes and sizes. On the surrounding stone walls, there were countless glittering and translucent spots of light, shining brightly. These were all kinds of unknown crystals that were naturally inlaid on the stone walls. At the very center of the stone chamber, there was another peculiar shape. It was roughly hexagonal, and on each corner, there was a huge white crystal that naturally protruded from the ground. It happened to form 6 white petals, and the center was naturally arranged to form a lotus seat. The gentle light emitted by the mystical crystals from all directions and even the ceiling of the cave coincidentally gathered in the middle. As the light gathered in the middle, it formed a light pillar that was almost tangible. It went straight to the top of the cave, and after being refracted by the top of the cave, it once again connected with the crystals in all directions, forming an indescribable subtle cycle. The power of nature was indeed magical. And within this huge light beam, which was as thick as a bucket, was a dense fog. If an expert with profound Xian cultivation were to carefully examine this fog, it would not be difficult to discover that the fog was actually the purest heaven and earth's spiritual qi. This was the biggest secret of the Silver Blizzard City. This was a stone room that was completely formed by nature. In this stone room, sitting on a naturally formed lotus seat, one's cultivation progress would be at least 10 times faster than in the outside world. Throughout history, only one person could enter this place. Only the Lord of the Silver Blizzard City, the leader of the Han family. This secret had always been passed down by word of mouth and would never be leaked to outsiders. However, this stone chamber also had a greater restriction. If one's strength had not reached the superior supreme level and recklessly entered the lotus seat to cultivate, then it wouldn't take long before his body exploded and he would die. In fact, this was also reasonable. After all, the heaven and earth spiritual qi contained in this place was too thick, and the quantity was too great. Even experts who had reached the level of superior supreme could not cultivate on the lotus platform for too long. However, the successive city lords were still able to cultivate in this stone room. As long as they didn't enter the lotus pedestal, they wouldn't be overwhelmed by the overabundance of spiritual qi. Although his cultivation speed was far inferior to cultivating on the lotus platform, it was still 3 to 4 times faster than cultivating outside. Therefore, the city lords of the Silver Blizzard City were able to become great masters at a very young age. Take Han Zhanmeng for example. His innate talent was only above average, but he was able to successfully break through the ranks of the Supremes before the age of 50. Now, he was trying to break through the ranks of the Supremes. This was a mysterious cave that was accidentally discovered when the Silver Blizzard City was being built. Once it was discovered, it was immediately classified as a top secret. After the decline of the other 2 families, the Han family continued to keep this secret until now. Even though the Shao family had almost controlled the entire Silver Blizzard City, they still had no idea about this secret. The Lord of the Silver Blizzard City was sitting upright in that milky white beam of light. He was the 3rd Great Master among the 8 Great Masters. He was second only to the Chief Great Master Yun Bichen and the Great Master Li Ju Tian, the Great Master of the Snow Blizzard City, Han Feng Shui. But Old City Lord Han's current level could no longer be judged by the Supremes. In fact, he had already surpassed the superior supreme level and reached an even higher level. This was the magical effect of this mysterious cave. Ever since Han Feng Shui had successfully broken through to the superior supreme level, he had kept this shocking news a secret. He had only passed the position of city lord to his son and had been in seclusion in this cave for 30 years. After Han Zhanmeng came in, he did not dare to make a sound and only stood quietly at the side. After a long time, the light finally moved slightly and an old man in white floated out. His clear eyes looked at Han Zhanmeng and said, "Meng, why have you come here today? You look so anxious. Is there something urgent?" The corner of Han Zhanmeng's mouth twitched, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. His youngest daughter's nickname was Meng, but his old father still called him Meng. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Come to think of it, when Han Zhanmeng had named his youngest daughter, Han Yen Meng, he had this thought in mind: no matter what, I'm the lord of the city, and I'm also her father, but you still call her Meng, every day. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But it was not convenient for him to say it out loud, so he named his youngest daughter Meng. What he meant was, your granddaughter is also called Meng, so you can't call me Meng, anymore, right? There should at least be a little bit of taboo, right? Who would have thought that her father, who had always been wise and far-sighted, seemed to be unaware of this? He still addressed her as Menger when he saw her, and also called his granddaughter Menger when he saw her. The two generations of father and daughter had the same name. Han Zhanmeng sighed and finally decided not to think about this infinitely depressing problem anymore. He had never won against his old father. He got straight to the point and said, "Father, the situation in Silver City has been very strange recently. I have analyzed it for a long time and finally came to a very unexpected conclusion. I hope you can give me some advice." Han Zhanmeng's face was very serious and he said slowly, "Father, the Shao family has been very sneaky recently. I even suspect that they are secretly plotting something against the Silver City." The Shao family. Han Fengshui's eyes flashed and he laughed. Old Master Han was already over 100 years old, but from his face, he seemed to be about the same age as his son. If not for the fact that he deliberately kept his hair white, he would have looked like Han Zhanmeng's brother. "Just be careful, don't worry too much." Han Fengshui said indifferently, "The Shao family's perverse actions over the years are almost over. I guess their wild ambition has finally reached its peak. However, they don't have the power to directly shake the Han family. They can only play dirty tricks in the dark." "Then what do you mean, father?" Han Zhanmeng was startled. He thought that his father would be shocked when he said such a big thing, but he didn't expect such a casual reaction. If the Shao family has no ulterior motives, then we, the Han family, must continue to follow the teachings of our ancestors and continue to support each other through thick and thin. This is the teachings of our ancestors and must not be violated. And we, the Han family, have been doing this for thousands of years. Of course, we must continue to do so." Han Fengshui said lightly, "The relationship between the Shao family and the Han family is complicated. Now, it can be said that you are in me, and I am in you. Whether the Silver City loses the Han family or the Shao family, it will be a great loss, and they will have to pay a heavy price. Therefore, for generations, we have carefully protected each other. It would be a lie to say that it is not tiring. Under such circumstances, the Han family has always been the leader of the Silver City, and the Shao family as a support. The Shao family has never been the leader. It would be impossible for the Shao clan to not have any complaints after such a long period of accumulation. Therefore, sooner or later, the Shao family will have the intention to take over the Silver City. This is human ambition, human desire, it is inevitable, there is no need to make a fuss about it." Han Fengshui's eyes shone with wisdom as he looked at Han Zhanmeng and said with a smile, "In your generation, I don't know if it is a coincidence, but there are no male heirs, only 2 girls. Therefore, the Shao family's ambition is growing. In addition, there is a strong fear, so it is reasonable for them to choose this time to act. Because this is the best time." "Reasonable?" Han Zhanmeng was speechless. Could it be that it was reasonable for the Shao family to betray the Silver City? Of course it is reasonable, why not? Any family that had been enslaved by another family for thousands of years would want to be the master of their own family. Although we, the Han family, have never enslaved the Shao family, but for thousands of years, the Shao family has done many things for us. It is natural for the Han family to do the same thing, but for the Shao family to do it, in their hearts, it is slavery. Different status, different mentality. This has been the case since ancient times. Moreover, after putting in so much effort, it is the Silver City that reaps the benefits, not the Shao family. If it were you, you would feel the same way, right? Han Fengshui smiled and said, therefore, the old saying, those who are not of our race are bound to have a different heart. This old saying is very reasonable. So, what should we do? The oath made by our ancestors still hangs in the hall. As long as the Silver City exists, the descendants of the Shao family will never die. Generation after generation, the ancestral teachings will never be broken. Han Zhanmeng recited the ancestral teachings in a low voice and frowned. If we act up and deal with the Shao family, won't we be going against the ancestral teachings? This matter was witnessed by the whole world, this. Who said you should deal with the Shao family? Han Fengshui frowned and looked at his son. Why do you want to deal with the Shao family? Ah. Han Zhanmeng was confused by his father. His eyes widened and he did not know what to say. He stammered, not deal with the Shao family. Then, don't tell me we're going to hand over the Silver City's foundation. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.